Mic check. Okay, there we go. I figured it out. For some reason, OBS just didn't have my mic set to, like, not the default position, but the saved position. So I was like, I'm talking, but I don't see any of the green going on screen to make it seem as though you guys can hear me. So this might be a little bit too loud right now because I was trying to adjust the volume to see if that was part of the issue, but it certainly was not. So welcome on in, everybody. Sorry for the little technical delay there. I actually almost forgot to start stream on time because I was very distracted by Path of Exile, and I was trying to like fix some of my build, which is just kind of completely broken right now. So I was not in the best mental state to start a stream, so I was slightly delayed because of that. So anyway, welcome on in, everybody. Stoatboat, Clownscum, Our Crusader, Dave, Boris, Asinex. How is it going? Right, turning up the volume on my end. Gonna enjoy the coffee while you wait. I really resisted making a cup of coffee like 20 minutes ago. Partially just because I don't really care that it's late as much as it is. It just like creates a lot of extra mouth noise for the stream and stuff, and I kind of hate that. So, on last night's stream, we already did the Shadow Cube. What did I do at the beginning half? We fought the Falling Star Beast. That wasn't that long. And then the rest of it was Mesmer? Oh, no, I remember. We did all of the NPC quests, and that's what took up so much time. I was like, how did we do so little? I mean, that's kind of it. So, right. On last stream, we did everything we could with Tiolier, Onspach, Leda, Freya. I screwed up Freya's quest, sort of. Well, I mean, I did it successfully, which means I screwed it up on my end because I was trying to kill her before the end, but I done goofed. So we concluded with Mesmer, and then I spent a lot of time just kind of changing around my fashion because there wasn't too much time to do anything else at that point. I kind of like how this is looking, to be honest, but I don't remember exactly what we talked about on the Mesmer thing, and I wanted to touch on one more point just in case I forgot it. So give me 1 second here. I'm gonna hydrate real quick. It wasn't this. I think I might need to go to the round table hold. Yeah. It's probably like his spear or something. No big deal. Yeah, so as far as like the silence is going, I was like, what is going on with my mic? My headset's obviously plugged in. So I like unplugged it and replugged it. And it's like, oh, there's still nothing? And there's like, okay. If it's not this, it's probably OBS not recognizing it on its end. And I'm glad that was it as opposed to something worse. So, Remembrance of Champions? Nope. Just combine two concepts. Anyway. Right, I definitely got sidetracked by the Forging Arts of the Realm of Shadow. No, it wasn't this. So I guess it really was the kindling then. Hold on, I don't remember what description says it. So the English must be different enough from the Japanese. So I'm gonna look up Shukume real quick. The same kind of fate that's referred to in the story trailer, like the thing that Mikola abandoned. I know that shows up in one of the Mesmer items, and I don't think I talked about that. So we've got it in Mikola's Great Rune, and oh, it's his helmet specifically. Rip me. Okay, so I looked at his chest, but not the helmet. Wait, what? Oh, I didn't buy his helmet. Okay. That explains much. Okay. Black Helm of Mesmer the Impaler, crowned with two intertwined winged serpents. Slightly enhances incantations of Mesmer's Flame as well as Fire Knight skills. The winged snakes were Mesmer's constant companions. They were there when the base serpent was sealed away behind his eye. They were there through his eternity of suffering. They will accompany him yet, in his hideous new form, born when he destroyed the grace granted by his mother. They have accepted his fate as much as he. So, what this suggests to me is that the sealing of grace on his eye must have given him a different form of fate than the one he was born with, because his hideous new form, when he wait, hold on, let me reread this. When he destroyed, okay, yeah. So his fate is attached to that form of the base serpent, which is the one that he was born with. So, like I've thought for quite a while, it seems as though grace is a kind of artificial fate or something along those lines. And I've wondered whether or not that has to do with the sealing of destined death or subverting destined death, because that would also tie into like Miyazaki's statements that the tarnished, or that the demigods' immortality is tied to the removal of destined death, whereas like the tarnished fate is not, I guess. So because the tarnished have been given grace, has destined death been thwarted? That seems like it would be a really good idea on behalf of America for like making an unkillable army, with the caveat of that might only work if the source of the tarnished's vitality remains alive itself, i.e. the Erdtree. But that's a little bit of a conjecture there. So everybody else, welcome on in, Galaxy Dragon and Save Frog. How's it going? Yeah, we got the Grey Rat helm a little bit. I like to think of it more like Vivi from Final Fantasy IX, or one of the Black Waltzes. Okay. I definitely forgot that his helmet had the special description. Actually, let me double check the other stuff if I wanted to comment on that. It talked to us about, or it talked to us. It definitely said words. It mentions how the little snakes were Mesmer's constant companions, which is kind of cute. I am curious why those things weren't entirely sealed, but they were there with him from the beginning, essentially. And so it's interesting that they accept his fate as much as Mesmer does. So I think the Japanese is a little bit slightly different on that point. Let me double check that. It's slightly different. I don't really know how super relevant it is, though. It's more like they're also accepting his hideous form as well. Okay, yeah, hideous form. Okay. Nah, yeah, I guess it's pretty fine in English. It's really not that different. Just, kind of hard to make one-for-one examples right now. Is there a lore reason bosses don't come back? They did for real, despite Destined Death being sealed. So, I would like to make some, like, off-the-cuff jokes about Radahn coming back and stuff like that. Or, let me think. Don't we have some... Well, I guess they're not bosses. We just have, like, Tarnished who come back after they get invaded. And the other bosses we defeat multiple times are either just clones or completely different enemies, I guess. So I honestly try to not think about the mechanics of respawning too much, because it's never really led anywhere productive for any of their games so far. So I mean, I'll look at it a bit, but I've never found a completely satisfactory answer. So if somebody is ever able to provide it, I would certainly be eager to hear it. So my working theory for now is that there might be a little bit of Groundhog Day type stuff going on in the lands between, which keeps the Tarnished going, but that doesn't exactly work for the bosses, I suppose. And in many ways, it kind of doesn't even work for the Tarnished, other than like when they stop seeing grace, then they die permanently. Which I guess now that we're on this track, that might also be worth mentioning in relation to Mesmer and his eye. Like once he abandons grace, he dies. I don't know. That's probably a terrible corollary there. Say Frog thinks 9 is the best. All right, so we're fighting now. Anyway, so that was all that. Pretty much the last things we need to do are to go through the bottom portion of the Shadowkeep. This is not where the Shadowkeep is. And then head into the Rao Ruins proper and burn the sealing tree before getting to that final area and or, you know, any side content type stuff I haven't done yet. So let's teleport to that first floor of the storehouse and move on. Have I talked about the Mesmer Melina connection? Yes, I did talk about that very briefly on last night's stream because of the fact that she's called like his little sister, essentially. Here's a little heal. And that he may be older than all of the Karian children if he's older than Radahn, who is older than Rani, and if one believes that Rykard and Radahn are twins because their Elden runes are similar. But to be fair, that is a pretty... What am I doing? I'm just screwing up. That's a pretty big piece of conjecture there. So it's possible Rykard could have been born before him. It's possible that Mesmer himself is a Karian. But if so, it's... Why do I keep doing this? What the hell am I doing? Keep forgetting this little guy. It's because I don't got the Crepus Vial on. Nah, he would have gotten me even if I did. There we go. Let's not take damage for once. Wait, why do I have nothing on? Oh, I know. It's because I was playing around with fashion. Yeah, whatever. The glowing eyes. Alright. Astanek says, respawning in Elden Ring makes sense to them. The ordinary people are still tied to grace and thus able to respawn. The bosses and demigods are open season by the greater will. And that might be one way to reconcile some of that stuff. But then I would also ask you about like the Tarnished. Like, are the Tarnished who no longer see grace abandoned by the greater will in your estimation? Which might be a fine enough explanation of things there. Why is this room so dark? It's just a wall, right? We got Angry Alexander there. Gold Pickled Foulfoot. Plus the Living Jar Shard and the Raw Meat Dumpling. Sayfrog thinks it's undeniable that Mesmer is a son of Radagon. So, I don't remember if I've mentioned this on stream, but it's certainly come up enough in the Discord to bring up here. Even if it wasn't brought up in the Discord, it's still worth consideration that hold on, let me position myself. So, do I have the item? What was it? It's the Great Rune, isn't it? I probably don't. Okay, no. So, Godric's Great Rune states, the first demigods were the Elden Lord Godfrey and his offspring of the Golden Lineage. So, setting aside the fact that Aeneas says the demigods are each and all the direct offspring of Marika, I think it's a little bit clearer within that context. She's referring to the demigod shard bearers more specifically than all of the demigods. Although I do think it's funny and worth questioning whether or not Godfrey was actually like legitimately one of Marika's children, which enjoy that thought experiment. But anyway, setting all that aside, if Mesmer is a demigod and the first ones were the golden lineage, then would that imply that Mesmer himself is of the golden lineage and then Godfrey's child? Or would it imply that Mesmer would be younger than the golden lineage? So Moog, Morgoth, and or Godwyn. And I wish we knew the birth order of those children. Although it might be a little bit less relevant now. Because I was wondering, like, why Moog and Morgoth explicitly were Omen, but Godwyn didn't look that way. That still does bother me, don't get me wrong. I'd definitely appreciate an answer, but it might be a little bit less important with the context of the horn set in the DLC. So, right, the whole Mesmer situation is about, was he the first child born after the golden lineage, or was he born before them? And based on that one Miyazaki interview where he says he's of the same status as the demigods, but he doesn't exactly explicitly call Mesmer a demigod, could he have actually been Marika's firstborn child, potentially before she ascended into godhood or divinity to grant him the rank of demigod? I think that's a possible solution as well, but that also brings up just as many questions as it might answer with the involvement of Marika and Radagon as one or two distinct beings. Asenik says, it could be the Two Fingers have some control over Grace. They could revoke the power. The charge to abandon it would likely have the gift revoked. That is possible as well, especially because of their ability to like meld remembrances and stuff. I wish we had more about the Two Fingers. Like, the meta stuff is really cool, don't get me wrong, but like it answers almost nothing that I was actually curious about with the Two Fingers themselves. But I do really like that we learned more about the Greater Will because of the meta. But Marika's involvement with the Two Fingers, their ability to control gold when we don't get any like real inclination of that with the meta fight, bothers me. So yeah, I don't know what to make of that. Hey Jack, Irish, welcome back in, and Corvanus, and Elden Enthusiast. Nice to have all of you guys again. Is this Fortnite? Well, something like that, yeah. It's a fort, alright, and it is kind of like night. Elden says, does the depiction of the Two Fingers on the talisman depict one standing at the Gate of Divinity? Are you talking about the sea talisman? Or you mean like the actual one right here? I would disagree because the pillars on the left and right don't seem to be made of corpses, but that is a really neat idea. It would be a nice idea if Marika killed Two Fingers in the past and like retrieved an Erdtree seed from their body, and that's what they used to grow the Erdtree. But that still leaves a lot of oddities to consider in relation to the Elden Beasts connection to the Elden Ring, the Farum Azulin depiction of the Elden Ring, etc. It just sucks because there's a lot of really cool ways that this could go, but it feels like no matter what stance you take, it opens up a lot of unresolvable questions about how other things connect back into it. And I feel like Elden Ring is a little bit on its own in that regard in many ways, because like while there was certainly a lot of vagaries in Dark Souls lore and Bloodborne's lore, how do I even like articulate this? It's not as though I don't know how to phrase this better, but I guess like an analogy that might work would be like Dark Souls and Bloodborne were like a little bit more black and white. Like it was a little bit more either or rather than having nothing to like fully support any one position. It's either you like agree or disagree with certain lore theories about the game. But with Elden Ring, if somebody has a lore theory, it just comes with like 20 questions which follow it, which connect back into the other 20 questions for each question, you know? So anyway, it's a little bit of a tangent there. Sorry about that. Galaxy Dragon feels like Mesmer is the child of Marika and Radagon. He's either before them all or an affair child while she was still with Godfrey, but before Radagon married Renala. And that does seem very possible, especially if it could have happened when Godfrey's eyes went tarnished after he defeated the Stormlord, who we still don't exactly know who that is, which it could be Sarash, depending on like the line's connections to storms and everything, but I don't know. Jack doesn't know if he did the right thing by defeating the final boss in the DLC. Well, anyway, you made Saint Trina happy. That's all I can say about that. All right. So part of the reason why I was stalling before moving forward is because I wanted to actually talk about this room a bit. So I really like this room because it tells a story with very little like textual details, which is one of like the best parts of trying to analyze the lore from soft games, where you don't necessarily need the item descriptions to piece a puzzle together. So, as I mentioned in my video, I do think that the Miko were kind of like deathbed companions to a degree to like the Hornsent, and that the Hornsent might have used them to try to circumvent death, because like jarring people was putting rebirth into the hands of man, essentially. But setting all that aside, as I'd also mentioned in that video, the perfumers like Trisha would treat those who were deemed impure, like the Omen and the Misbegotten, so that way they could die free of pain. And as I constantly bring up in this kind of thematic dressing here, the Baldecan Blessing says, the favor allows one to forget any aches and pains. In death, there's only peace, for in death, there can be no sensation. So, why is that important? This ties into my whole idea that curses are things that are still paradoxically alive even though they're dead. So, they might not be like those who live in death, but there's something kind of adjacent to it. We've also got... Damn, I forgot you roll forward when you pull out the telescope. Zoink scoop. I angered them all. So before I anger everybody else, here we go. Let's just jump on here and continue our monologue. So what was I saying about the Baldacans? Alright. So the cursed, rancorous spirits are kind of alive but kind of not. And that might thematically tie into those who live in death in a different way, because we do have some necromancers in the catacombs which can seemingly resurrect skeletons with like a ghost flamey type of flame, which I didn't want to like take a privileged position one way or the other of trying to say it is or was not those who live in death flames or like Deathblight Godwin related. And I think some of the extra context in the DLC could suggest that the whole Deathlight, necromancy, rancorous type stuff existed before Godwin died in the Night of the Black Knives. So I would put it more along the lines of like those lost in death rather those who live in death. So anyway, because the way curses work is that they are in constant anguish, or their metaphorical hearts are so filled with resentment, they're so attached to the physical world that they can't let go of it, and literally and figuratively pass on into, or they can't, figuratively and literally, they can't let go in order to pass on into like true death, essentially. So curses, even though they're dead, they're still alive. And the Baldachin's blessing is telling us that for true death to happen, there is no sensation. Which I think that's actually slightly different in the Japanese, but I don't remember it being like ridiculously different. So I felt like the message was the same and probably a little bit cleaner in the English, to be honest. But I can't quite remember. And okay, yeah, the whole perfumer aspect of this. Because the perfumers were treating the impure, those who would like go on to become cursed, and made sure that they died free of pain, they didn't go on to curse others. And I think that thematically ties into the way that the manflies who are afflicted of the horn scent population don't go on to afflict others with their disease if they have been given proper death rites and were like looked after before they died. So I think the horn scent attending to the manfly transformers were that culture's equivalent to the perfumers. And we also have some other stuff that ties into that, like the white masks, war surgeons, delivering mercy blows to their compatriots and foes alike, so that way they don't suffer before they die, potentially to avoid them from becoming like cursed and whatnot. So the horn scent also have their own blades of mercy, which they used on their comrades. We don't know why that is, but I think a lot of this stuff is actually pretty well grounded in Elden Ring's subtext, and does connect back to some of the inner mechanics of previous FromSoft games like Dark Souls, more specifically. So, alright. Buzzgut, nice to see you again. Looks like a war hospital tent. Yeah. So, I guess I didn't even point that out despite going on such a monologue, so thanks for reminding me. Yeah, when we come down into this apothecary, part of the reason why I was going on such a long tirade about the perfumers and whatnot is because we have these kind of perfume vials in this location. We've got like the Greek censers. I forget what those are actually called, but this is like taken from like a real life thing. I don't remember what exactly it is, forgive me. And we have the innards of jars essentially splayed on these infirmary style beds as though they were trying to be treated. And this is done in the Shadow Keep, which is a little bit of a surprise because if Mesmer is doing genocide, then it's a little bit unexpected that there would be a much softer aspect to what is going on with Mesmer's forces and the Shadow Keep more specifically. And especially with like the what I would call like the jar scent and their innards. Like, why do they care about these folks specifically? And that could tie into how we are told that the shamans are spirited away. And so this could have, like, all of the jar folk who've been transformed could have been the same people as like America's extended kin. So that could be one potential reason why they were seemingly trying to be treated in the Shadow Keep of all places. So a lot of really neat little details to pull out of more or less one room in the DLC. So I just really love stuff like this. And having said all that, let's go ahead and pick this one up. The Iris of Grace. Cool. So I think that's our second one now. Yeah, okay. So I'm not going to worry about reading that. And then we did pick up the Wall of Sparks, which is a perfumer Ash of War, and they all say the same thing pretty much. So, all right. And hold on. Oh yeah, Buzzgut's talking about the Kusatagama with the Vulgar Militiaman. I noticed that when I was like playing through on stream. I was like, man, we don't have that kind of weapon. I was a little bit jealous too, because that'd be really cool to have like a power stance weapon where maybe if you pressed L1, you would like throw the left-hand weapon. So kind of like almost an inversion of the smithing script weapons. Stowboat says, all those who have cursed America are reborn through her children. There are superstitions of spirits of ancestors living with their tribes that become reborn through their women, and some reasoning to why men aren't allowed in birthing places in those days. I don't know about that. I definitely think there's room to believe that. I don't know if there's enough support for it based off of what we have. Obviously, we do have like the Miko village, which it's a little bit unfortunate that just calling it the Shaman village doesn't have the same connotations that it should have been like filled with like holy women specifically. But oh well. But that would definitely go along with what you're saying there, Stout. And yeah, as Astenix was saying, this is kind of reminiscent of the second Grand Cathedral in the Bloodborne DLC. It's 3:30 a.m. and you're not counting sheep? Oh no. Boris asks, do I think the Horn Scent butchered the shaman for no reason, or was it revenge for America's doings? So it seems as though America may have gotten revenge against the Horn Scent based off of like them believing it was a betrayal, because there was nobody left at her village when she went back to it. It is also possible that she betrayed her village more specifically, but that kind of doesn't line up super well with how the note at the bottom of the Shadowkeep says, like, have mercy for the spirited away shamans. So I think the Hornsent were doing their stuff before, like, Marika was doing hers, I suppose. Alright, so that was all that. We picked up that Iris of Grace. Now we get another hefty cracked pot. And I don't remember what else. Oh yeah, so these are the Jarfolk innards, which is pretty lovely. And these seems to be, or this seems to be more like the I don't know what to call it. It's like the innards would shoot out and can grab the player when they do their grabby attack. The innards are innards. Lordy coming. And so I don't know if there's a substantial fundamental. Okay, sweet, that's the kind of attack I was talking about. I don't know if there's meant to be a substantial difference between the what I'll call these things is like Miko versus the little jar barons. If they're all made up of the same stuff, or if something different was going on for like the little clay dudes. So part of the reason why I bring up them being like Miko and holy women and whatnot is because if these individuals were supposed to be like, we're supposed to allow the Hornsent to be reborn into good people, it might be because they are more pure than the Hornsent are natively, and that is a bit of a an educated guess. So I want to highlight the guess part of that, because Miko tend to like ritually purify themselves, and because they're holy women, there's that whole aspect of purity. They might be like maidens in the more like virginal sense of the word. But I digress. It's pretty much just all guesswork. And so we get some innard meat. And that's mostly it for this area. I think there's like a couple more enemies in the room down below. And then we'll be moving. Galaxy thinks America betrayed the Horn Scent because they stuffed our people in jars. And while this is an assumption, you'd like to think this is what sent her down the path to becoming a god. Potentially. That does seem like a good enough motivation. It definitely passes a vibe check. But unfortunately, we don't know how accurate it really is. I'm honestly of half a mind to try and email like George and be like, yo bro, what's Destined Death about? Or some like other random questions. Like, what's up with Radica? Alright, so that is all that. It's kind of a little bit surprising that there's even a grace here, to be honest. It almost makes me wonder if they thought of the possibility of being able to go into the Shadowkeep from this direction, which would be super cool, especially if you like did the Belfry first. So this door doesn't open for whatever reason, but we got a little side servant door type thing going on. As we come this way, we're going to get a bunch of bait items, which aren't very important, as we get barraged from a new Fire Knight. Beast liver, beast blood. Oh lord, he's a fire in his laser. Alright. Look at this dude. Salsa. And Rain of Fire. Which apparently Rain of Fire is pretty disappointing. I tried it. I don't know if they buffed it. They might have, but I'll just say that it ain't. Hey, bro from the moon. Nice to see you again. Oh, you don't need to apologize for missing a stream. Life happens. Shoot, I almost missed my stream today. The Nightmare Soul Calibur weapon. Yeah. Soul Edge. It has been buffed. Is it actually decent, though? Like, it would have been okay if it was, like, a base 20 faith with how much damage it did, but it did so little for how much was required for the spell. Rain of Fire. Incantation of Salza, Sage of the Fire Knights. Summons a cloud of flame overhead that pelts foe with rain of fire from above. Charging increases potency. Salza's disdain for barbarism never waned, even as he burned more villages and scorched more land than any other. I love the stuff like that, where there's a bit of depth to the characters, the side characters, so he's a real bastard man following orders, but what you gonna do? Hood of Salza, Sage of the Fire Knights. A prodigious amount of cloth wound around it, giving the impression of a greatly swollen head, and wearing it increases intelligence. So this must have been what that one goofy-looking ghost was wearing that one time when I got distracted by it, because it didn't seem like an oracle head or something else. A disciple of the Elder Wego, he refused to burn down an old ruin at the risk of his own life. So because we're about to go to Rao Ruins, it seems likely that he refused to burn this place down because he's kind of like standing sentry outside it. So he may have also tried to stop others from doing it as well. And because Wago was, what did it say about him exactly? We got his stuff a while ago then, huh? Down, okay. Didn't we get something else which told us what he did? Who's the dude? Oh, it's the Hildy ashes. Hildy was a dear friend of Saul's of the Sage and joined those who urged that the specimens be preserved. Okay, so I was confusing Hilda and Wago, whatever. Okay, so Wago is just like the OG. The dude who was doing the fake necromancy. Good enough. Alright. It's decent now. It's okay, Jack. Stowboat says there's also some belief that by laying with virgins, your afflictions are cured, and some places just removed, or some places just removed from them to pass on to the virgins. Hold on, let me. I think you might be missing a word, or I'm just not parsing this properly. Or in some places that lying with virgins would pass one's afflictions onto them. Right, so I think that because the Horn-Sent Sinners are grafted into the Miko specifically, they may have been trying to avoid them from becoming cursed. And so maybe the Horn-Sent civilization was focused on stopping the propagation of curses in general. Alright, so I was going to go one way, but we'll go the other. Just for a bit. Wait, no. This other way is self-contained. I take it back. I take it back. We'll come back this way eventually. Maybe Destined Death is removal from time and space, fourth dimension type-ish, like how is Melina alive? I tend to think of Destined Death as the total obliteration of body and soul, because that would be like each one half of what happened to Ronnie and Godwin. But as always, everything's debatable in these FromSoft games. Gaming with Gurus, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Colossals are OP, man. Up until you actually need to fight an enemy that doesn't get stun locked ad nauseum. Does it sound like it's getting her around? Anyway, I don't think there's anything too important over here. I might be wrong. It's probably something small. Oh, so those are corpses after all. That felt amazing. So the red-eyed blood fiends were like drinking the blood of the corpses on the ground. I don't know if they can also get buffed by this guy over here. Or gal, I don't know. But I just think it's really cool that they can use blood flame attacks. I didn't even realize I hit the other one with that. So just a somber smithing stone. Yeah, so that was nothing after all. Feels bad, man. Anyway, we get this interesting little passageway, which seems like it should have had a functional purpose. I know that they had some stuff like that with like the Egyptian pyramids, and they were like mechanisms of some sort, or so I've heard. But it's been so long since I've heard about that I don't even fully remember the particulars. So anyway, I do wonder if there was some more like mechanical purposes to stuff like this in the Rao ruins, because it seems pretty suspect otherwise. They'd be like, it's Mogan time for real though. Galaxy Dragon thinks that the Rao were the first human civilization predating the ancient dynasty. We see many different Rao ruins and settlements in the base game, but no one mentions them. So yeah, I definitely get the vibe that they are probably like one of, if not the proto-civilization. And it is kind of annoying trying to reconcile where they would fit into the timeline with the ancient dynasty of like the Ul and empires. Hold on. Let's forget what the second kingdom's called. I think it is Ul and Uld, like old. Old and Ul. That's what it is. Anyway. Who do I think are the potential candidates for the Stormlord? Do I think the Stormlord is someone we know or something we haven't heard? That's a good question. I don't really have the strongest of opinions about it. Despite everything, I still do think that Placidusac seems like it could be the most likely candidate for Stormlording, because it does literally transform into a storm during its fight. However, we do have Divine Lions using like, or Divine Lion Warriors I should say, using storm-like attacks throughout their fights. And so if that's the case, I could see Sarash being a good candidate. Or if not Sarash, perhaps another Lion or Lion Warrior could be another possibility. It could have been like the Lord of the Banished Knights for all we know. I don't even need to fight you no more. We got another Skidoo tree fragments. So I would say, in order of likelihood, somebody else, Placidusax and Sarash. But I feel like even with both the Placidusax and the Sarash ideas, that there's going to be problems with it, because we don't really see a lot of evidence of an all-out conflict between the folk of the Erdtree and Fair Missoula. But if Sarash is the Stormlord, that doesn't seem to match the implied chronology of the stupid sword monument, which talks about the Stormlord, or not the sword monument, but the talisman, the Old Lord talisman, I think. No, it is the Stormlord, or damn it, the sword monument, I think. Anyway, if the War of the Giants happened first and then Godfrey fought the Stormlord, it just annoys me that he's called Godfrey there rather than Horaloo. But to be fair, I feel like a lot of that tends to be developer oversight anyway, and he should have been referred to as Horaloo more often. But what you gonna do? Yeah, my Mimic likes to lament. So when I actually fight real bosses, I tend to unequip the Lamenting Visage. Bro thinks it's Sarash. Alright, Jack, you have a good night. And thanks for dropping in as always. Stoat asks, do we have a definition or translation of what Rao means? Like how Uld is old, Skadu is shadow? No, so I wouldn't say that Uld is old specifically. I think it's Urudo, sorry, which doesn't really mean anything as far as I know. There might be some like etymological things, but my point is it's written in katakana, so It could be any number of things until we get like an official rationale from the devs or like the localizers. And setting all that aside, even Rau is just put in katakana, which signifies that it's kind of like a foreign or like a loan word, something along those lines. But it's like, it could be Rau, Raufu, Laufu. So it's anybody's guess. Okay, so we still don't have enough. Oh, so we probably need like 2 more or something like that at this point. Kyle says, don't consider the Stormhawk King? Absolutely not. And with prejudice, I reject the idea. And my prejudice comes from the Japanese description for the Stormhawk King saying that it wasn't all others that regarded it as sovereign. It was very clearly the lord of all other Stormhawks specifically. So now that we are finally in Rau, we have more horned creatures in this region. We've got the radish crucible bears, for lack of a better term. And even the other fauna tend to have more pronounced horns on them. Alright, so now that I've shown off the bear, what time is it? Okay, it'll turn to day soon enough. But maybe I can show it off. Yeah, I guess I'll go back to that other area, because I don't remember where all the critters are off the top of my head. Okay, this will be good enough. So as we come into this other region, we'll have some more horned creatures. Now those are stags, but this one in particular has a lot more like tangled horns than the typical critter would. Let's ragdoll it into the bush, why don't we? And this doesn't look particularly omen-like or even like the regal ancestors. It does seem to be a little bit different. I don't necessarily think it is, but it's just noteworthy. And we'll also see like more horned boars as well. So we've got the bears, the boars, the deer, I guess. Oh, what's that last thing technically a deer? I don't know. And I don't remember if these I don't know what these are actually called. I tend to call them jackalopes, but I'm sure there's actually like a real life parallel to them. I don't remember if these things have horns or not, or if this one doesn't, if any in particular do. Golden horn tender. So some people say that the jackalope things guide people to treasure in certain locations. So I think in the Zamor ruins, they like go directly to where the hidden item is, but I haven't tried to like screw around with that over here. Let's get rid of the critter. I know what we're going to need to do. This might not work, but let's get it out of the foliage. I like how I said let's get it out of the foliage, and then I just killed it in the worst spot. Anyway, this is for the lore, guys. Rauvelt roughly translate to rough world. These are certainly the rough ruins. Rau is a variant of smoke from Night Scouts researching the name. That's interesting. And I'm assuming that's Monkey Man. Welcome on in. Owls as well. Yeah. I know some cool horned owls we can find next to the furnace golem. So I was going to head on that way eventually. Hey, Jay Dixon, appreciate that. You have a good night, and thanks for dropping by. Oh, Lord, we followed. All right, hold on. Right, Counting Sheep was asking if we know of a connection between Sarash and the Stormhawk King. That's a really good question. Pretty much the inference would be that if it was like in the early days of Godfrey and or before Godfrey's time, they might be related, but we don't fully know. So, oh no guys, we've come into a dead end. Psych. Imagine like putting it in illusory wall here of all places. Alright. So, setting that stuff aside, I'm gonna read chat and then talk about our lovely lady over here. Now, Scott thinks that the Stormlord's the Stormhawk King. It makes sense that he'd be the greatest of the Stormline beings. He has an apparent domain on Stormhill. He's important in Naveli's quest, etc. Well, the fact that the Stormhawk King bows to others as sovereign could be an indication that it was defeated by Godfrey. But I don't know. I just don't like it. The idea of like Godfrey fighting a hawk and then getting sad after is kind of funny though. Niall might have only learned lightning after aligning with the Golden Order. As for the ice, it might just be due to the cold weather, like how O'Neill has Scarlet Rot. Oh, so you're thinking about like why they use their types of elemental attacks? That's interesting. Yeah, I never thought about that too much other than just their locations and whatnot. Hey, operator, nice to see you again. Okay, so within the Rao ruins, we do have a surprisingly humanoid figure of a woman. So we don't know whether or not the Rao folk themselves were gigantic like this figure, or if they were more humanoid in size. Obviously, the Giant Crusher does say that people now are smaller than they used to be, and that could just mean, like, relatively speaking. So let's say that even if, like, the Rao folk are bigger than our Tarnished, maybe they were more along the sizes of Godfrey / Horaloo, or America and or Radagon, etc. So this figure kind of reminds me quite a bit of the figure of a woman with the urn that we can find in like all the catacombs, essentially, in many of the churches of the Lands Between, although those seemed to be more affiliated with like America on the surface. And having said that, I do think there is a bit of a resemblance between this figure and Marika herself, but I mean, oh no, a stone figure depicting a woman looks like another stone figure, well, looks like another woman who is stone, I guess. But anyway, I don't know how fair of a comparison that is to make. I'm not trying to say for sure, like, oh, this is America, guys. Because if this was supposed to be America, it would not feel very organic to the way that America's home village is said to be the shaman village. That the shaman folk and the Rao people are like one and the same. It seems like based off the architecture of the Rao ruins and the Blackstone ruins in general, they seem like they would be way older than what's going on with the shaman village. But to be fair, like the Rao ruins are a lot more sophisticated than the shaman village, so maybe they could have come later. It just doesn't feel good to me for me to read it that way, I guess. So some other ideas about whom this could be depicting would be that it could potentially be an outer god, like the outer god of Scarlet Rot, depending on how one feels about the kindred of Rot in this location. Some people believe that this could be depicting Ramana herself. I'm a little bit skeptical about that claim because it seems like Ramana was one of a line of priestesses, or whatever they call her, in the Church of the Bud. The Church of the Bud seems more recent than the rest of the ruins, so that's part of why I'm skeptical about that idea. Another idea would be that this could be like the outer god of the Mother of Truth. This doesn't have to be an outer god at all. It could just be a figure lost to time and history. But I do think there is some attraction to thinking that the Rao could be related to Rot in some ways because of how like the mushroom set talks about like the old lords or something like that. And then of course the Rao folk could also be responsible for creating the ancient meteoric or greatsword, which was essentially the tip of an arrow by like giant folk. So if the Rao weren't giants, then who were the giants who like would have crafted and used this bad boy as a weapon? Would be another thing to ask ourselves. Oh yeah, and thanks for mentioning the Matryoshka doll global sequence, and welcome back to the stream, because I did meant to mention that this figure kind of also reminds me of the figures which have the cracks in them that could be broken by trolls and whatnot, where you can get like smithing stones. But again, I don't think that's like a one-to-one depiction. And there's not really too many details you can make out about this figure from its appearance, except obviously, like, its hat in our world, it would be more affiliated with like a religion of some sort, but that's just more a medieval thing, and that doesn't necessarily have to be true, because like back in the medieval ages, some stuff was more practical than religious in nature, and the two were conflated just because like religion was kind of inseparable from daily life back then. Alright, so that's pretty much that with this lady, I think. I wish I had the free cam so I could like look closer at her head. I guess it's just like what are they called? Not like inscriptions on the top part. All right. Night Scott said the hat's often associated with goddesses and priestesses. You can't recall the name at the moment. Something that starts with an M. Okay. Operator says, where's the stone figure? You missed it on your own run. So this appears in multiple places throughout the Rao ruins, but essentially from the first site of Grace, I took a right. I fought the red bear, which doesn't really matter. It's just kind of along the way. And then as you go forward, there will be a pit that you can jump on down into. And then after that pit, there's an illusory wall next to the scorpion room. Yeah. As many people like to refer to this lady, she's now endearingly known as Elden Jane to accompany Elden John, who seems to be from like a different culture entirely, but I digress. Modius. Those are often worn by high priests or gods, while a similar hat called a polos seems to be worn by goddesses. Interesting. Man Ray, oh no, welcome into the stream. It kind of looks like a Karian crown, a little bit. She does kind of remind me of the ladies on the Lift of Dectus, but they look quite different as far as like their attire is concerned. We ain't scared of no Scarachnids. Or Scorpionids. I think that dude was wielding the giant crusher. So as we come into the Rao ruins, we also have a bunch of shades of horn scent. I don't remember if these dudes actually have horns, but oh no, they certainly do. Certainly do. And some of them here can cast Spira, which is a little bit surprising. And more than a little bit annoying. I think the first time you kill the glowy pot guys, you get something good. A Spirit Calculus. Burrow, Broken Rune, Dugum. Right. Oh, so that does remind me, we did pick up like the Spirit Bond Stone next to the lady statue, I think. Anyway, I don't know what to say about the kind of pattern on this wall. It does vaguely remind me of the Erdtree seed talismans, but I don't really think they match up. I mean, I know they don't. Anyway. Elden Enthusiast is cutting down his script. Good luck with that, man. I know that's like one of the hardest parts of the writing process for real, though. So I think we get the Cursed Blade dude. No, not in the room with the scorpions. He's like in the first area. We get like a bunch more that fall down, I think. We get some Star Wars droid action going on over here. Is this the only scorpion that does that? Wow. Okay. Let's just back up next to the wall. Use our head a little bit. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. Okay. Somber Smithing Stone Tier 6. Definitely worth / sarcasm. Alright, so we got the Bond Stone, which is a large burrow stone studded with a perfectly white gem, said to be the polished form of a special kind of crystal. A ritual implement made to control explosions of spiritual power. Used to cause a spiritual explosion, consuming the sprite dwelling within Sprite Stone. Bonds with the sprites are made to be broken. So, I wonder if that ties into what Muriel was talking about. I'm just looking at this and thinking it kind of resembles an eye. It almost seems to be like a polished version of Spirit Calculi. Yeah, I don't have too many thoughts about what it says, to be honest. Antiquity Scholar's Cookbook. I should zoom in on this sometime. Wait, there's a jar in the bottom left. Can't make out what's on the... Oh, that's a Rao or burrow thing. Okay. A record of crafting techniques left by the Hornsent academics who studied the ancient ruins of Rao. Details techniques for working with sprites thought lost to antiquity. And from this we can craft sprite stones. Hey Stella, nice to see ya. See you again. Wow. Where are those droid decas? They're dead. Jim, everybody's dead. They have iframes when they roll. It's so annoying. Taste of our own medicine. Night Scout thinks the Rao burrows remind them of the horn scents No, Hornset. The Castle Morn Wailing Stones. So here we get another depiction of that same lady that we saw earlier. I thought that was a ghost. And then we'll... I don't like the... Is this fire? Oh, okay. It sounds like insects scuttling a little bit. Anyway. As we come into this area, we will fight another Hornsent Curse Blade. And that can go either swimmingly or terribly, depending on how much of a jump he gets on us. Bro thinks this counters Spirit Calculus? How so? Night Scout thinks that the Hornsent were the last descendants of the Rao Ruins? Maybe. I kind of get the vibe that they're kind of like squatters. But who knows? Maybe they are all connected. Oh no, Torrent's weak. But so is this guy. It's a colossal attacks. Sweet, and we got the heals off before the flasks were replenished. Hey, so that pot guy gave us a fragment. Alright, so we've just kind of made a big loop to the beginning of the top area. No, we didn't. This is the wrong way, but hey, we got a horned eagle. Don't see those every day. And for some reason, these types of horned creatures, like the avians, are more white in appearance. Maybe because they're like more spiritual in nature. It's like the spirit calculi. So this should have been the right way, I thought. Maybe I'm just oriented wrong. Or maybe there's two in general. Okay. Yeah. I normally come in from the right side like I did. And don't need to come back this way because there's not anything too crazy here. So anyway, this part going back this way is where we came from. But I ignored this section, so this is where we saw the critters with the extra horns earlier on the stream. Wait, no, it's not. Or is it? No, it is, I think. Or is this a second layer? No, I'm wrong. So up there is the top part. So I'm definitely screwed up here. That explains it, because, yeah, okay. We'll need to jump up. Bro from the moon says the flame sounds always get you too. Alright. Oh, sorry, Night Scott. I think I was misunderstanding. Or maybe I just misspoke. Hold on, let me... Where's the chain of thought? I think I knew what you were saying about that, but I probably got confused. Oh, okay, I see. So you think the people of Morn were the last folk of the Rao descendants. Okay, I was not picking that up. Okay, that's fair. Get stunned, boy. I should probably heal. Nah, that's probably too slow. From that, we get the spider scorpion ashes, scorpion liver, and sliver of meat. Oh, that's right. I need to talk to Grand Am to hear her gloat about Mesmer's death. Nobody reminded me. That's all good. Last shard. White flesh mushroom. The raw burrow. Raw burrow. So I think we're gonna go this way and back up the sky. Nah, I could always just warp back up to the top later. Yeah, that makes more sense. I'm still close to the goddess and priestess's statues. What direction are they facing? You'd think they might be looking in cardinal directions. Southeast. East-south. Bro thinks it counters the Sprite Stone consumable which you craft with the Spirit Calculus. It sends a little sprite after enemies, and you believe the Bond Stone breaks the tracking. You'll need to test it. Okay, that could make sense, because I certainly don't use consumables enough to be the most privy to that information. So we got some random blood fiends. I almost called it a horn scent. Wait, did I kill the dragonfly too? Maybe not. I feel like I'd make that jump, but I think there's safer spots to do it over here. Oh yeah, I'd definitely be fine. We know this does connect back to the top, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. So this should have been where the hippo was, right? Yeah, okay. So I screwed up. So I'm not going to fast travel. Oh, I don't remember if my elevator's down here. It should be. Did it just bark? And now I'll go that other way. Hey Dylan, nice to see you again. Your only complaint with this place is by the time you come here, everything you encounter is completely familiar. Well, okay. Now we get some more of those horned boars, I was talking about. For some reason, these types of horned boars are way more aggressive than other ones. Maybe not this region, but certainly in the Rao base for whatever reason. So yeah, going back to the enemies becoming too familiar, I can definitely agree with that. And I feel like the base game had that issue as well, especially when you got to the mountaintops of the giants. So it's a little bit ironic that when you come here, it's kind of got a variation of the fire giant theme playing. So this is the way that I was originally thinking of. And now I think we're going to run into another Curse Blade. Yeah, he's going to be perched up there. And we want to take like the spirit jet stream around. I love the colossal trigger attacks on horseback, in case it was not clear at all yet somehow. Oh man, we've got a ton of runes. Okay, so I still haven't read the Spider-Man Ashes, but I'll get to those. And yes, I said Spider-Man on purpose, because it's funnier that way. Now this should connect back into the first type of area that we were at by all the scorpions. Oh no, it doesn't. Or do we drop down to get here? I don't remember. Yeah, so I wanted to show off these dudes who cast Spira. It's like, why the hell did they cast Spira? There's certainly a horn scent, but anyway, I digress. Oh yeah, so as far as like the sigil goes for the golden spear type stuff, I forget what they call it, the spiral tree. For the spiral tree type stuff, I do think it looks kind of reminiscent of the two fingers, but I think that's a death drop. Maybe not. But they're categorized differently regardless. I heard it land properly, but I'm still skeptical. Night Scout says the bond stone's meant to detonate your own sprite stone early to better time its use rather than sabotage other people's sprite stones. Okay, that makes sense. This is actually the introduction of the Divine Bird Warriors. Maybe if you... Hold on, are there any... Oh yeah, I guess that is true at the very end of the dungeon. Of course, that's assuming if you didn't do the belfry first. Okay, now I know exactly where we are. So that's where we walked through the door. And I typically go this way, right? Okay, I got it. So we'll go through the door. And that'll take us to the jet stream, right? Wait, there's snails in here? I forgot we had snails at all. What kind of snails are these? Are these fiery snails? Poison? Poison. It's funny because like just yesterday I thought it was kind of weird that we didn't have any snails at all in the DLC. Here we are, guys, a brand new enemy type, brand new stuff, never before seen. Then y'all were talking trash. Shame on you. The bond stone doesn't work on other people's sprite stones? Okay. Elden says, the Shadow Tree could have been the original Erdtree if it was depicted on the armor of Memphis' army. There's a big hole in the Lane-Dell where the tree could have been. Where the tree could have been in Lane-Dell? Do you mean like the pit where the Erdtree is? Or are you talking about like over here? You know what? The Holy Quarter was flooded. Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense that there's water up here either. I guess it makes a little bit more sense, but not really. Water is weird in Elden Ring. It doesn't follow gravity. Didn't learn from Radon and his master. Anyway, let me go back to that comment. On the spiral trees on Bellyrot iconography. Yeah, I do think it is a very strong possibility that if there was an original Erdtree, it could have been a spiral tree based off of like the Silurian armor looking like a spiral tree and all of the Bellyrot stuff. Dylan likes the navigation of the Rao ruins. You love how the area is laid out. I have mixed feelings about it. Like, I do like it, but it just doesn't, there's not a lot of reason to like want to come back and explore other spots. Like, there's a lot of neat dead ends to things that aren't too important, I guess. So we get the fine Crucible Feather Talisman. Which, I don't know, like, if there's a better solution for that problem. Like, the reward structure is completely a separate thing from the actual level design. I can totally recognize that. But it's, I don't know. It's just like one of the bad things about the open world in general. But I mean, like, even the previous FromSoft games had that to a lesser extent. Like, Dark Souls 3 was a little bit too linear. But, I don't know. I just think the crafting system could have been better. Like, maybe after you killed enemies and they, like, dropped certain items where you could, like, craft the things that they are equipped with, that'd be cool. But the drop rates in general kind of suck for some crafting. And if anybody's like wondering about that statement, I mean needing to farm basilisks for scarlet Ionian butterflies is it's a choice. Oh yeah, and they only have an 8% drop rate is kind of what I'm getting at. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the place you farm them is the freaking Lake of Rot. In the Lake of Rot. Not even just, like, around it. Anyway. Hey, Astinex, you got back from letting the puppies out and in? What's up? I definitely understand that fiasco. So we're just, you know, exploring the Rau ruins. I do like this spot in particular for the ruins for no real reason. It's like, oh hey, you can kind of like fall and land down here. I think if you fall on those cliffs you get something. Oh, maybe not. Just a random mushroom. Like, the thing to me about the Rao ruins is that they just feel not functional. They just feel very ceremonial, which is odd. Okay. So I just ignored that when I fought the Horned Sense. So I should have just gone this way. Wait, I came this way? Oh, this is where that spring was. Okay. Right, so now we have all explored the first story and the second story. So we can go down to the third floor, right here, and out. So we should be getting to our next site of grace like really shortly here. I think there's a couple more flyboys, unless I got all of them. Okay. I don't know if my attack didn't go through. Anyway. Shadow Realm Rune, tier 7. After we go to the site of grace, we'll talk to Grandma. Oh, and Devonia's over here. I forgot about her. So that's actually a legitimately new weapon in the Ruins of Rao. Did I say weapon? A legitimately new enemy type. Singular enemy type. A mini-boss of sorts. Ancient Ruins cross message. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Shadow Tree fragments. Message from Leda. So we'll also go to Castle Ensis first, just to get another message from Letta, and then Grandma, and then what's its face? Yeah, this should be it. Night Scott thinks the area of Langdale was flooded in the Shattering. We can see Godric or Godfrey's army marching the gate leading to the flooded area in the story trailer. That's true. I was just trying to think of whether or not the Shadow Tree could have ever been there. But if they're trying to march on it at that point in the story, does that just mean the cinematics are messed up, or was there something more to it? Interesting. So in my game, she had left a note here for some reason, which I wanted to double check. Maybe I picked that up already. I'm like having talked to the NPCs. I don't remember. So let's get ready to go see Grandma, and we'll read a ton of items and talk to her. You can drop some stuff for me? Oh no, it's good, man. Appreciate it though. I need to level up, huh? I don't know if she just starts talking, so I'm gonna do all my reading and whatnot over here. And what have you. Alright. Night Scott said, you think the Rao ruins wanted to be a maze? It definitely works in that regard, but a few more visual landmarks to give a flair to the culture and more memorable visuals would have helped. That doesn't bother me too much because it feels like they're so ancient that I wouldn't be surprised if like a lot of that stuff was either lost to time and or looted either by the Hornsent or Mesmer's forces. Although I guess we don't really have too many traces of Mesmer's forces there specifically. But I mean, we do see Ramana clutching the bud of her church in that intro sequence, so maybe Salza really did do such a good job of preventing the place from actually being burned beyond what it needed to be burned by, I guess. I don't know. They remind our Crusader of the Western Air Temple in Atla. Stoneboy thought that the nameless city underground used to be in the flooded area of Langdale. That is definitely a very attractive idea as well. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate that. Elden saw somebody get banned on Reddit for arguing the Golden Order came later in the timeline. Bro, could you link that in the Discord? Because I want to see that. Because, one, that's really funny to me, so I wonder if they just argued the point so terribly that people hated it. Two, they could have argued it in such a way that even I would hate, which would be kind of fun to see. And three, I just want to see if I'd get banned for the same thing, but a little bit curious. Anyway, it's not too important. Matthew Sargent, nice to see you again. It's got to be one of the places of all time, indeed. Alright. Spider Scorpion Ashes. This scorpion is larger than a human and attacks with pincers and a poisonous tail. Appears some distance from the summoner. This breed of scorpion was native to the realm of Shadow, but was far smaller in size. Recent giant scorpions are said to trace back to the Church of the Bud. So that implies they may have been made bigger because of either the Rot or the Outer God of Rot's influence, both of which are really cool, especially because the Antspur Rapier, no, not that one, the Scorpion Stinger, whatever it's called, implies that the Outer God of Rot itself either was a scorpion or it dwelled in a scorpion, which is super cool. So imagine if we got to fight an even bigger, gigantic scorpion with Rot abilities. That's what the devs failed to deliver. Now, I digress. Ramen is still really cool. She's just kind of a pushover. So I'm just talking a lot of trash so she could actually fight me and kick my ass so I could have more fun now. Anyway. Fine Crucible Feather Talisman. A talisman fashioned from thin feathers that embody the aspects of various creatures. Said to have grown on the human body long ago. Improves backsteps but increases damage taken at all times. I need to try like these out sometime because anytime I ever get like more damage for doing something, I'm like, oh, that's trash. I'll never use that. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway. Hornsent view the Crucible as sacred for the refinement wrought through its evolutionary gifts, more prominently their tangled horns. So I've got a lot to say about this. A lot of you guys have heard a lot of it already. I'm going to refrain from now for going on that tangential spiel because it'll tie more directly into the things with Crucible Knight Devonia. So I digress. Ancient Ruins Cross Message. Message left by Dryleaf Dane addressed to kindred spirits who also pursue Miquella's trail. Quote, we found the sealing tree just ahead, but if we are to burn it, we need the proper kindling, that of Sir Mesmer. So this note will be there even if you don't kill Mesmer, which kind of makes sense. So that does tie into like one of my ideas that they might have thought of allowing us to approach the Shadowkeep from the Runes of Rau's direction at some point in the game, but it doesn't happen now at least. I really would have liked it if the Belfry would have connected us into the ruins proper, but what are you going to do? Message from Leda. Message left by Needle Knight Leda addressed to kindred spirits who also pursue Miquella's trail. Dane passed on a message. The sealing tree is in the ancient ruins of Rau. It lies beyond the high bridge leading from the first floor of the storehouse. I will join you there once I have finished the task at hand. So she's going on a bit of a murder spree, which we may or may not have been implicated in. So anyway, these kind of notes from the NPCs have Miquella's sigil on it, that of the Hailing Tree, which you can see in the new Hailing Tree incantations, or whenever you tried to purge the Lord of Frenzied Flame. I think the sigil shows up when you use the Bewitching Branch, but I don't quite recall. I'm trying to think. Hold on. Are there any gank fights? I wondered if the Lolling Branch... I wonder how that works against the Lamenter. Probably doesn't work at all, but anyway, that's not important. So we need to burn the sealing tree is the TLDR of all that. Alright, Elden, thank you. Appreciate that. And Scott says, well, we're in a downtime period. You have a question, LP. Is it okay to talk about the final boss in the stream right now? I mean, I don't really have a spoiler policy, but if it's too off topic, I might ignore it, or I'll say that I'll come back to it later, but I tend to be pretty upfront and address most questions when they get brought up. Yeah. Yeah, the notes do feel a little bit awkward. I feel like they didn't exactly know what they were going to do with it. Feels like a letter more for the sake of reminding players who found Rau before beating Mesmer. Yeah, it made more sense for me on my playthrough because that's what I did, but I don't know, it just felt a little bit heavy-handed. The sealing tree, because I mean... The thing about the sealing tree is that it's super cool, but it doesn't make a lick of sense. Like, there's nothing leading up to it other than the like stupid little shadow roots in the top of Bellyrot. So it's just like a bit of a MacGuffin to do the thing, essentially. But we don't ever really know like what it is, the hows and whys of it, or how much it's supposed to be related to the Shadow Tree. Alright. What do I think of Leda's rune? It's real pretty. I have too strong opinions about it. I wonder if that's like part of the coercion. Alright. Night Scott said, regarding the final boss, in the comments of my Mesmer video, I said his Japanese description notes, an absolute god and its lord would never stand in line. However, it's still unclear to you. Oh, right. I thought I mentioned that to you like on another stream when you popped in that one night. Hold on. Let me hydrate. Well, I'm assuming you're typing your message here. So be right back. So, okay, to answer your question there, and also welcome back into the stream, Pokemon. The final line in that description of the God and the Lord not standing in line is that the God and the Lord should be taken as one item, like they're a pair. So, Nicola and Radon won't be okay taking second place to the Tarnished becoming the Lord of the new era, essentially. So they, like, a true god doesn't wait in line, because that would, like, that just doesn't work. Like, you can't be a god but subservient to somebody else. You can't be top dog if you're not top dog, is kind of what it's getting at. Alright, so hopefully that's clear enough. Let's go ahead and talk to the Empyrean Hornsent Grandam, who's no longer an Empyrean, and see what she has to say, because I did not do this, because I may or may not have killed her. Oh, damn it, I should have done all of this before. Wait, how does this even work? I thought... I don't know when you get the good stew from her that I should have given to the Hornsent guy. I guess I could have helped him. That's probably what it would have been. I think if you kill Mesmer with the Hornsent, you might be able to talk to him again at that site of grace with Leda. Maybe not. I don't think so, actually. I think he just says... Anyway, I'll figure it out some other time. Okay, here we go.
Heavens, great and gallant sculpted keeper, I know it in my bones. Thy deed is done. A worthy deed, no doubt, to bring our foes what surely was deserved recompense. Oh, heaven hath borne witness to our plight. Thy gleaming wrath and unparalleled dance. Though a trifle it might seem to thee, I have prepared a dish in celebration. It would please me much if thou might partake. Partake, partake, until thou art sated.
So now we get the gourmet scorpions too. Okay, makes sense.
O sculpted keeper, I offer my thanks. Thou danced with passing wrath and beauty, such that rightfully avenged we would be. I have never known such joy as this.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool stuff right there.
Sculpted keeper, O great and gallant sculpted keeper, wert thou by this old maid unduly pushed into facing such labors as thou didst? Has our grave resentment fettered thee? With such bounteous fury didst thou dance? I cannot presume thou didst not suffer. Please, I ask thee, allow thyself some rest. None of the tower would dare interfere, and if one should, I'll see to them myself.
Alright, so even though I haven't seen this dialogue directly, I've definitely read it in the text dump, and this is another integral part to all my theories of, like, resentment leading things to become literally attached to the physical world. And so the Hornsent grandma saying that are you stuck on, like, in the world? Is it the fault of our resentment? Kind of just reinforces that belief that I had before even truly being aware of these lines here. So I do think that divine invocation is calling down spirits, and so if these spirits are called down and bound to the world by the Hornsent's resentment, she's a little bit curious that their vengeance has been meted out, or mated out, I don't know how to pronounce it, and the sculpted keeper is still here, so that doesn't make much sense to her, but she's just so elated, she probably doesn't really care, and is a little bit blind to the ruse that we have going on for right now.
Apologies, O noble visitor, but wouldst thou permit me a little rest? Mine eyes are oft apt to glaze over, the years taking their toll, 'tis plain to see. Even telling dream from reality is a task increasingly beyond me.
That's very interesting.
Apologies, O noble visitor, but wouldst thou permit me a little rest?
I should have tried talking to her without the helmet on to see if she said something else.
Apologies, but...
Alright, so I'm assuming she's probably going to fall into an eternal slumber if we exit out and load back in. So let's see how that goes. You like her voice acting? Yeah, and he is pretty great. And don't worry, I'll address Night Scout's comment again after we get through all this. Nothing changes without the helmet? Okay, cool. Oh, maybe I muted myself. Okay, so nothing changes without the helmet? Okay, cool. So, as I thought... Actually, she's not dead. She's sleeping. Oh, we get another gourmet scorpion stew? Wait, didn't we already get one? Huh. Alright, I'm gonna reload just to sate my curiosity. And I'm tempted to, like, strike her to see what would happen. But we could always just save that for after we're done as well. Okay, no more free stew. Unless we, like, use it, perhaps? I don't know. That'd be really cool if we could get it, over and over. So the gourmet scorpion stews boost physical damage negation temporarily and gradually stores a great amount of HP, which is pretty cool. So the new one doesn't have the nice little flavor at the bottom there. So scorpion simmered in a black soup, an exquisite dish chock full of mouth-watering scorpion claws. Boosts physical damage negation temporarily and gradually restores a great amount of HP. The thoughts and feelings of the cook melt and blend into the stew, but those who can distinguish the taste of love are few and far between. Quote, partake. Partake until thou art sated. So let's put the helmet back on. I went the long way for that. It's pretty much what I expected. Cool. So let's put our little VV hat on. We'll teleport back to the place and comment on some Molo. What? I would do stuff like that. Anyway. Now that I'm not exploring for items, it's really not going to be too far out of the way. Did I really just pick up the items? That sucks. Okay. So Night Scout was still asking about the Radon stuff. How could the Lord and God combo be standing in line, so to speak, when the shattering is a free-for-all? No one has a right of first refusal. So keep in mind that when Mikola grabs the player, he says that we're the Lord of the Old Order. So that free-for-all has kind of been settled by the canonical time of that fight with Radon, which is really stupid because you can do the DLC before even like burning down the Erdtree. So you don't even have to fight Morgott to do the DLC, really. Oh, I forgot to go through this door? So I lied to you guys about having fully explored floors 1 and 2. Wait, did this just close? Haven't I been here? Oh no, okay, I know what happened. I just didn't open that door from this side because I went off to the right. So I lied about lying, guys. My fault. We are in the clear. I think I'm taking the long way. Actually, no. Maybe not. But this is not the right way. Yeah, we still do need to beat Moog and Radon. It's just goofy. By the time we get into the Shadowlands, we have at least 2 Great Runes killed. 2 of his brothers. Yeah. I think like the only 2 you technically need to beat at that point would be Moog and Radon. Operator would betray anybody that fed them scorpion stew. I feel so silly. It was like, hey, let's go over here, and got distracted by the items. Okay. Night Scott said, based on the grab, Mikola seems to be thinking of the Tarnished as the best chance of being the next Elden Lord, basically counting the chickens before they hatch. So it seems more like Mikola is insecure about anyone who would be on his or his puppeteer Lord's vessel, rather than actually secondary and forced to fight. You think Mikola was hoping that eventually Leto would kill Moog? Or he could charm Moog into pulling a bot-approved Sudoku. Okay, I see what you're saying there. So either way, I don't think that like contradicts the idea that Mikola and Radon aren't going to allow anybody else to become God over them. Like, saying it's a free-for-all doesn't matter. They intend to stand on top, so they're not going to let anybody else be over them. Like, you can't be a god, essentially, and have like another god over you within this setting. We're not talking like Zeus is the king of gods or anything like that, though. Like, he's not going to wait for his turn for the Xbox, essentially. Did I actually level up? I don't think I did. Okay, right. So 2 for that. We've got enough decks. Faith Arc. I don't even know what I want to put on. Let's go Endurance. Nice hat. Thank you. Appreciate that. If we've claimed the Elden Ring, we're already at the top. Well, that's why he fights us. Because we don't just offer it to him. Uh-oh. Panic rolling. I should have used my flask. I was hoping that was going to stance break him. Or her. She's got a flower! I was trying to actually barricade shield, but it didn't go through. Devonia's Hammer. Crucible Hammer Helm. And that's another Crucible spell that we don't get. Same with the Crucible Frog Tongue. We also don't have to kill Vike or Bernal to be Elden Lord, so it doesn't seem like there's some prophetic kill X first Highlander to actually rise up. Well, the thing is, Mikola can't become a god fully and become Elden Lord. Well, Radahn can't become Elden Lord because we're standing in his way, just like how we eventually stand in Godfrey's way. Like, we're in their path to getting to America, essentially. Are the Bubble Boys in the DLC, though? They underground, you know. Alright. So, I avoided talking about the fine feather talisman, but let's check out Devonia's Hammer and Crucible Hammer Helm. Great hammer wielded by Devonia, longest serving of the Crucible Knights. Weapon forged of primordial gold, marked by its reddish hue and inhabited by ancient holiness. A torrent of life is engraved upon the striking face. Unique skill Devonia's Vortex. Using the power of the Crucible Vortex, violently spin the hammer around and slam the ground, causing a shockwave. This skill can be charged to increase its power. Actually, let me double check the other Crucible weapons. How do they call them? I don't have them. Duh. Not on this character. Let me look at the text dump real quick. Well, I should have Siluria's Spear at least. That'll be good enough, right? Did they call it Siluria's Woe? Ah, it's so annoying. Okay, so as far as the Japanese goes, it should be like Siluria's Vortex, just like the Devonia's Vortex is a thing. Let me double check Ordovis. So that's Ordovis' Vortex. So for whatever reason, Siluria's tree is just described differently. Maybe they changed the Japanese script and the localizers missed it or something. Anyway. Or maybe there's just some archaic definition to woe that I do not know. Where's in the chat? Okay. Thanks for the GG. Night Scout loves the Centaur move. Yeah, it's really cool. Seems like it'd be too intricate to make a player move, so it doesn't really sting to not have. Well, I think we could have had like something similar, even if we just had a stomp. You know how you could like partially transform into a dragon to do like Grail's Roar? Even if you just like partially transformed into the Centaur to do like an earth-shattering stomp, that would have been good enough. Even if we didn't like run around. Or like the Crucible Fire Breath Pouch. Devonia not getting a boss health bar or Crucible Night music was such a crime. Elden says, doesn't the Japanese call the primordial form of the Erdtree the Golden Tree? So that's a very leading question, and I should explain that Erdtree just means Golden Tree. So you're right, but you're not asking the right question, if that makes sense. And Anthony Rodrigo Bright, welcome on into the stream. The helix of DNA, you think? Yeah, so I think like the vortex is essentially the whole spiral imagery that's kind of going on with the horn scent. Now, I kind of phrased that poorly myself, and I should clarify that I don't necessarily know if the Crucible stuff predates the Erdtree, or if it is like the first form of the Erdtree, and whether or not that first form of the Erdtree coincides with Godfrey's reign. But I'll talk about that more in a little bit here. The Crucible Knights being named after geological epochs is a nice touch. It really sucks that Darrowell and Flo were what are they called? Bloodhound Knights? Yeah, Bloodhound Knights rather than Crucible Knights. All right, so the right question would be, why is like the Crucible described as the original Erdtree or the original Golden Tree, and how would it differ from the Golden Tree that we know of now, essentially? So it's all the Golden Tree as far as the Japanese text is constructed. The only difference is the Crucible stuff is called like original instead. Alright, so Devonia's hammer. Using the power of the Crucible vortex, violently spin the hammer around and slam the ground, causing a shockwave. This skill can be charged to increase its power. So that's not too important. I'll probably put that on just to show the torrent of life on the striking face to everybody. Crucible Hammer Helm. Helm worn by Devonia, longest serving of the Crucible Knights. Holds the power of the Crucible of Life, the primordial form of the Erdtree. Strengthens aspect of the Crucible incantations. It is said Devonia quested in search of the Crucible's origin and departed from the lands of the Erdtree alone. So, oh boy. So when I read this description, I was like, okay, so this does kind of differentiate the Crucible from the Erdtree definitively. And now I've kind of like flip-flopped and I don't exactly know what to think. So take a lot of what I'm going to say with many grains of salt here. So going back to that second paragraph where it talks about the primordial form of the Erdtree, I've long had a bone to pick about that phrasing in particular, because it can imply something that isn't necessarily compatible with the Japanese, but as far as the English is concerned, it's technically correct, but it can be like misleading. So part of what I dislike about it the most is by saying primordial form, that aspect of form isn't necessarily there in the Japanese, which let me kind of like back up and restart. So rather than primordial form, it's just kind of described as the original Erdtree. So part of the reason why I take issue with that is by saying primordial form, it could imply that the Erdtree existed in a different form rather than something which was born fully and complete. And part of the reason why I bring that up is because, and this was a bigger deal before the DLC, is that the Smithing Stones tiers 6 and 7, or 7 and 8, 7 and 8 say that the Erdtree was born at the war, or like at the war against the Giants, which is kind of weird. But if the original Erdtree is actually the Erdtree, does that mean that the Erdtree was the original Erdtree was born during the war against the Giants, or is the current Erdtree not the quote-unquote original Erdtree, and is the current Erdtree born from a different type of, maybe not like an entirely different organism? Anyway, my point is, before the DLC, it was a little more ambiguous as to whether or not the birth of the Erdtree's language was being used literally or metaphorically. And now I'm probably leaning to this being more metaphorical language, which I did entertain as a possibility, but I tend to treat things a bit more literally unless I have a reason to believe otherwise, because it's kind of a pain in the ass trying to determine whether every little thing is meant to be literal or figurative. So, having said all that, we'll bring it on back to the whole issue of what the Crucible is in relation to the Erdtree. Now, what really made me think that the Crucible should be a different thing entirely from the Erdtree, despite being described as the original Erdtree, would be that Devonia is the longest serving of the Crucible Knights, and they all served Godfrey, who should have been around, like, presumably at the start of the Erdtree, and if even they don't know what the Crucible's origin is, and if the Erdtree was born at the war against the Giants, then it seems very likely that the Crucible is something entirely different, which is fine. And this is where I will once again point to the Siluria tree description, where it says that it's modeled on the Crucible and it's shaped like a tree of all things, which, like, what the hell is going on with that? So the Crucible is a tree. It's also the original Erdtree, but is somehow different from the Erdtree, ? So this is a really big sticking point of the lore for me personally. I know other people think it's very straightforward, which I don't blame them based off the English text. But part of why I think this is a big deal is because we do have this other tree going on to consider with the Shadow Tree, and a potential third tree with a spiral tree that could have pertained to the Age of the Hornset. So, to lay out some options and continue this monologue a little bit more before I go back into the chat and then, like, monologue a bit more, would be that it's possible the spiral tree could have predated the Shadow Tree, and the Shadow Tree could be the remnants of Godfrey's Erdtree, and it could have been, like, sealed by Radagon's Erdtree, the current Golden Erdtree. So there might be up to 3 epochs of having a giant tree, or potentially only 2 if one thinks that there is a spiral tree and then the Erdtree itself. And then, of course, the alternative of being, like, how do I phrase this? The spiral tree being the original Erdtree, and then the Radagon Erdtree being different from that. But I don't think any of the iconography works very well to describe any of these situations, which really sucks. I don't have the icon shield on me to show you guys, but it looks more akin to the glowing minor Erdtrees like we can see in the Shadowkeep. So that's a pretty condensed version of what I was talking about. I apologize if any of that is a little bit overly redundant or overly unclear. It's just something that's been haunting me since, like, the very beginning of my forays into lore hunting and trying to decipher the timeline there. All right, Acidex, you have a good night, if you're still around. And then Anthony says, the trees evolved in the Devonian period. It's crazy, yeah. Bro from the Moon thinks it's a letdown that we get the aspect of the Crucible wings only as an Ashavor. I do wish there was a little bit of some redundancy with stuff like that. I guess that would also help make the game feel a bit more rewarding, having stuff like that. Oh yeah, and as Dylan was saying, primordial can even imply existing at the beginning of time or being metaphysical, right? So that's, I typically harp on that, but I didn't this time around, and maybe I should, because we do have a decent amount of new faces in the chat here. So part of the reason why I take umbrage by calling it the primordial form of the Erdtree is that it can give the impression that it is, that the Crucible existed at the very beginning of life. Which, you know, that may very well be a possibility. I'm not trying to discount it, but it leads people into thinking that it is certainly the only interpretation that the Crucible is like the first form of life in the Lands Between. But we do have some potential other things to consider, like Meta arriving into the Lands Between before the Elden Ring and or the Elden Beast, or like the depictions of so-called Elden John or the Rao ruins, potentially predating Fair Mazulan stuff, yet depicting humanoids. So the Elden Ring could have potentially predated all of them, to be fair, but it's not quite clear when it did arrive in the lands between from the Greater Will and the Meteor, and why it took so long to kind of be the incarnation of order based off of the description of protection of the Erdtree. So setting that aside, if you call it the original Erdtree, that could mean almost anything. So it could still be a prehistoric tree, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like the very literal first form of all life. So that's kind of a huge flavor difference, which I think is a pretty big has a pretty big impact on one's interpretation of the lore. Night Scott said, perhaps the Crucible Knights know how the Crucible became the Erdtree as first-hand witnesses, but don't know how the Crucible itself was born. And yeah, I think that's kind of what is implied with Devonia's quest right here. But I just wanted to try to give as many possible interpretations of like what that could mean, depending on like what the Crucible actually is versus what the Erdtree actually is as like golden trees. Dylan thinks there was a third tree. The shadow tree spirals counterclockwise, and the spiral in the art spirals clockwise. Or maybe, Dylan, we're just looking at the shadow tree from the wrong angle. I don't know. Anthony thinks the Crucible might be like an engine of life tasked with creating and evolving all the life in the planet. Thus, the Golden Order came about. So, before we had all of the horn scent, so this kind of doesn't really matter, but maybe it does, depending on like how we feel about the depictions of the people on the Rao ruins here. So, before the DLC had happened, I didn't think we actually had very many tangible examples of what I would call like chimerism in the creatures of the lands between. So we certainly had Omen and Misbegotten, but we didn't know if the Omen and Misbegotten predated Marika's reign or if they were a byproduct of Marika's reign and the Elden Ring. So I'm not against the idea of the Crucible being the engine of life, but why is it that the Crucible talismans represented atavism, which means like a de-evolution, a regression of forms to something in the past, if the Crucible was a force of evolution, I guess. So I don't know if the way that I just described it made much sense, but my point is, if the Crucible is blending things together, then why aren't the Rao people on their statues blended? How come Elden John doesn't look blended? Does that mean the blending actually happened later? And because these are all aspects of the Crucible which are like part of the Erdtree's power, was the Erdtree essentially blending life together through its roots to bless people with its blessings? Is kind of what my thought process was. But now the Hornsent do throw a kind of a wrench into that idea, but I'm also a little bit curious as to whether or not the Hornsent themselves are a more relatively recent addition to the lands between, and if that could pertain to Marika's betrayal. So that'll take me back to the fine Crucible Wing Talisman thing that I was ignoring, and I was going to come back to. Wait, how come I don't see it? Oh, there it is. Hornsent view the Crucible as sacred for the refinement wrought through its evolutionary gifts, most prominently their tangled horns. So why is this a newer like development? Why is this evolution when in other descriptions the Crucible represented regression? It's like, how is it both? And I think it kind of only makes sense to me if it came later in the timeline. I'm willing to be wrong about that. It just I don't know. I just have issues with all this. Dylan thinks it makes sense for a third older tree. Monkey Man says maybe Godfrey's tree was burned and replaced by the Erdtree, like how we do it in the ending of the game. Yes, I kind of am of the opinion now that I think such an event may have happened. I mean, it did happen because we're told that it's like part of Mesmer's kindling. It's part of the first sin, which Ania tells us is burning the Erdtree. But it seems like we have a bunch of red herrings as to what that was, because we're told that the flame of ruin was sealed to prevent the Erdtree from burning because it's capable of burning the Erdtree. But if Mesmer's flame was with the original sin, so to speak, then maybe the flame of ruin wasn't the flame that burned the Erdtree. It could have been Mesmer's flame, or it could have even been destined death. So when that would have happened is anyone's guess. So I think there's a good possibility that if such an event happened, it could have been from that so-called third tree that I've been referencing. That could have been the thing which predated the Erdtree, and then by burning that tree, Marika ushered in her age. So her age was kind of ushered in with a sin of burning the Erdtree, kind of like the cardinal sin that we commit. Or the other possibility is that Marika and Radagon could have burned Godfrey's Erdtree to usher in their new age. Or both things could have happened. So potentially a gigantic tree could have been burned 2 times before we do it for the 3rd time, each one ushering in a new age of its own. So hopefully that makes sense. Night Scott says, adding to the Crucible talk, the Divine Bird Feather incantation says, the Divine Bird Warriors, and indeed this technique, are said to bear resemblance to the Golden Crucible. No mention of red. Yeah, so when I read that, I was like, oh no, it's over for me. It's Jover. But as I thought about it more, it's like, wait, no, it just says it resembles the Crucible, so the Divine Bird stuff is not actually the Crucible elements. So that's kind of like me huffing on the copium real hard there. But yeah, I agree with that. I guess, I mean, anyway. Night Scout doesn't think there's enough archaeological evidence of a first Leyndell devastated by the ashes of entirely burning a prior Erdtree, nor is there enough archaeological evidence of a secondary civilization to live in while removing the ashes and building a new Leyndell. You say that, but I mean, we got a big old tree over here that is woefully unaccounted for in the lands between, and that could coincide with either the beginning of Marika's age or the beginning of Radagon's age. So if we only had the base game stuff to work with, I would be more inclined to agree with you. But it really sucks that we have no idea what exactly the Shadow Tree really is to the Erdtree, other than being the shadow of the Erdtree. Kyle thinks the Elden Beast came with intelligence. Beasts were granted intelligence at some point, and the beasts have 5 fingers. Meta only has 4, and she was first. Maybe. Would the Leyndell Erdtree... Sorry, let me reread Dylan's full comment. It said the defeat of the giants also marked the beginning of the age of the Erdtree. Would that be the Leyndell Erdtree or the Crucible Erdtree? And that's kind of one of the biggest questions that I had before the DLC. I think this is open to individual interpretation, obviously. So for me personally, I would have said that the War of the Giants gave rise to the Crucible Erdtree, and I don't know exactly how I feel now. I think the timeline honestly fits together better if the War of the Giants led to the Crucible time, but I know other people will disagree with me on that point. But anyway, it's just whatever your headcanon is. Anthony says Elden John is blended though because of the tree stuff. I can see what you mean by that. I looked at him, guys. That triggered him. I was wondering if that's going to be able to hit me. Hey, Dylan, what kind of spiral is this? He's half tree, half roots. Elden said, the Hornsent tried jarring while sorcerers tried graven masses. Both are similar in blending life. True. However, like, that's at the very least like an artificial form of blending rather than the like Crucible style natural blending, perhaps. As far as the item descriptions changing POV, I would take that with a grain of salt, and I don't think the POVs change very much unless such descriptions are have like hypothetical or figurative language included with it. And there are some certain exceptions to that idea in general, but I honestly don't believe that the point of view of the author of the item descriptions is inconsistent. Stoat says, whether it's evolution or de-evolution, both would imply the Hornsent aren't the oldest or the first. Well, evolution, I mean, I'm not trying to say that the Hornsent were the first, but I'm just saying that let me think of how to phrase the Hornsent thing and maybe stop moving the camera around. I don't know if that's like dizzying for you guys. I don't think it's a contradiction that the Hornsent could be evolving because of the Crucible, but my thoughts on if they're being evolved because of the Crucible, is that because the Crucible is a newer thing? Is this a new type of evolution? And I don't think I explained that point very well, so thanks for bringing that back up. And so, yeah, the Fine Crucible Feather Talisman and the Hornsent gaining these evolutionary gifts, is that a natural thing, or is this a is the Crucible essentially like genetic steroids or like radiation being inundated into all life forms? And if only Teen Sith were in chat to squeal with glee at the radiation comparison there. Do I think Miyazaki ever gets confronted in the street by fellow lore psychos in Japan begging for answers? Maybe. It wouldn't surprise me if they recognized him. Although I get the vibe that he's probably the type of dude that would drive a car. I don't know. And part of the reason why I say that is because like Japan has like a ton of public transportation, so I imagine it would be very easy to be stopped or spotted. But he could also just like wear a face mask. It's not very uncommon at all, especially for celebrities to try to stay a bit more incognito. Bro thinks that the Erdtree is Melina. It's both burned and bodiless, just like her. Also, you find it suspicious that she can only govern her own movement once she's in the capital. So I've thought about that idea as well, with the caveat that I think that Melina could have been an aspect of Marika. And with that in mind, I wouldn't disagree, because we're told that... Sorry. I apologize to the dog because I just accidentally kicked her. It's because Aeneas says something about the thorns like protect like the husk of the Erdtree's psyche or something like that in Japanese. I don't remember exactly how the English phrases it, but yeah. By my lord, will I ever make sense of this jumble? Nope. Get ripped. Alright, so before going into this next area, I should probably craft some pots. And then I'm actually going to run past a lot of stuff. 5 is probably necessary. To just get rid of that stupid golem so I could have some fun. As far as the ancient times goes, Anthony, it sucks, but we're told that the minor Erdtree guardians also have an ancient pact with the Erdtree. So, what is considered ancient Elden Ring is woefully recent, it seems. I was going to be upset if he killed Torrent. What's my dog's name? I've got 2 of them. It's a secret. You like the radiation comparison? Why else would Grace randomly touch almost every person in the lands between, except for those on the outskirts? Speaking of like Grace, and it sucks that this is kind of cut content. The fact that at least in one point in development it was said that Grace was brought with the Erdtree, like what the hell does that mean about the Crucible then? Like, was there no Grace? Was it a different thing? These are rhetorical questions. So we got a Skaju tree fragment. We see more horned warriors. We got another revered spirit ash from the revered tutelary deity. And because we've already killed the Hornsent NPC, we shall not be invaded here. Damn it. Ugh! It got me. Hey guys, I'm a red mage now. Mirot's still ticking up. The elevator must have been moving. Oh no, it's because I'm on the elevator. Hey Moxie, how's it going? How's your video doing? I saw you post that earlier. I haven't checked it out, my apologies. But if anybody wants to learn more about the Scarlet Rot, or no, Flame of Frenzy that was. My fault. Moxie just released a new video about it. Were you talking about Midra and stuff, I'm assuming? I guess I'm already rotted, so I may as well stand in the rot, huh? Oh wow, that groan. This is like super rot. I'm not gonna go that way. I'm gonna go hit up that site of grace and then come back around. What content? What did I say? Oh yeah. So in the 1.0 version of the game, the Japanese 1.0 more specifically, it said that in the Lowlanders rune, and I think even like the Lands Between rune, that Grace was brought to the Lands Between with the Erdtree. The English localization says it was brought with the Golden Order, which I think is just a bit of a typo on the part of the localizers, because Erdtree is Golden Tree and Golden Order is Golden Order, but it's one character difference, so I think they just may have had like a bit of a snafu and misread it and put the wrong text in, or the text could have just been updated later on. I mean, it eventually got changed anyway, so it doesn't really matter, unless one is making a 1.0 playthrough. Alright, lore complete. Now we can actually do stuff. You hate this specific golem? Understandable. Yeah, I liked the golems when there was only one or two of them that I knew about, but having so many Mitchells is, it's a little bit grating. Okay. Ayunat says, you're going to Japan this November. Do I know of any FromSoft related place to visit? You don't know if they have some physical shops or statues or something? I think their offices are in Tokyo, but I don't recall off the top of my head. That you could probably just Google that, bro. You don't think Lanedale would be living in the Shadowkeep until the ash removal and construction was complete in this hypothetical? Well, what I mean by that is Lanedale could have been burned once. They could have cleared out the ash, and then it could have been burned again, and then that ash may not have been cleared. But either way, like, the ash being in Lanedale is just kind of awkward, no matter what one's belief is. Some people think the ash is there because of Gransax, and others think it's there because of the shattering even. So it's about America being frenzied? Okay, cool. Doesn't that contradict Memory of First Grace? Let's double check. I don't think so. About it all being a cycle. It's all a cycle. Anyway. The memory of First Grace, which once guided bygone tarnished to the lands between. Lose all runes and return to the last site of grace visited. It is merely a cycle. Stand before the Elden Ring. Become the Elden Lord. So I would say no, this doesn't contradict it, because Tarnished are still affiliated with the Godfrey's time. So, related with the Erdtree. Night Scott asks, what do the Scarlet Bud items look like before you pluck them? Any match the buds in the Swamp of Ionia? I'll need to look at that before we pluck them. Still thought the golems would be a singular boss. I thought that at first until we saw that second story trailer. I'm like, oh my god, there's more than one? And then as I played the DLC, I was like, oh my god, there's more than one? Alright, so let's set all that aside and deal with our golem non-friend. I didn't equip it. Smart. So you can fight this golem normal style, which sucks. Even fighting him cheese style sucks. But it's slightly better than normal style. Oh, that's right. I gotta activate the bastard. It was Bat Rastard. Wait, why did it get aggroed at me at the site of Grace? He's not aggro now. What a chump. And so after I kill the Flame Golem, I'm gonna need to remember to go visit the Horned Spirit Owls just to show them off. So we talked about them. And so there's also a horned turtle at the bottom of the Spirit Spring. I jumped too high. I was not paying attention. Golems everywhere. Watch him like snipe me out of existence. Just to be safer. There's a good spot. I think I can chill over here. Let the golem get kited this way. Okay. You love my take on whether the lords in Dark Souls were hollow before finding the Lord Souls? Thanks. I still need to make a video where I say, hey guys, the soul is the curse. Or, I mean, not the curse. The flame is the curse the entire time. Because I feel like once the idea is pointed out, it's kind of obvious, but everybody doesn't believe it. Oh no. I should have realized he was jumping. What a bastard. So I need more hefty pots. It didn't help that I missed two, but I don't think that would have been enough to kill it, to be honest. But we've got to think for times like these. All right, Elden, you have a good night. Take the plunge, you won't die. Oh wait, why did that one do so much more damage? Crimson sapping cracked tear. Damn it! Which was the stamina one? Wait, I thought I already got this one, to be honest. Restores HP upon landing attacks. What was the one that I got? I'm not worried about it. It's not one that I wanted. Connor Cafisso, welcome into the stream. Any connection between the Church of the Bud and the statues of the saints cradling one golden bud and the statues of the saints along the Capitol Road? There's a smaller version in the Round Table Hall. Yeah, that statue also shows up in Lanedell itself by the Crucible Knight. Well, I say the Crucible Knights. By the Crucible Knights to the right side of the main rampart entrance. And it has like a really golden looking flower. I was going to try to show it off, but then I remembered Lanedell is ash right now, so I can't, unfortunately. But I don't know if that would have any relation to Scarlet Rot specifically. I'm a little bit skeptical because I feel like that kind of depiction would have probably been removed by the forces of the Erdtree. And the fact that it lines the road between Lanedell and Raya Lucaria seems like it's of significance to both cultures. So these are the cool horned owls, literally speaking. And the reason why I said literally is because there are so-called horned owls in real life because of the way their ear tufts look kind of like horns. So these ones are more whites, and yeah, that's pretty much that with them. I thought it was just cool to show off that the Rao ruins do have like more primal creatures, I guess, if we want to call them that. How much time do we have? Okay, we got a decent amount of time. I'm going to switch back to this for the fun. So we will... let's just teleport to the Raminus spot. We will do the Ramina fights, and I don't know if we'll have enough time for the Dancing Lion, but... man, that one's not going to be fun. Well, at least this time I have blessings. Alright, so... I will try to look at a Scarlet Bud after the Ramina fight, because we'll probably just be able to go to the Altar of Light and Dark real quick and show that stuff off. Pest Thread Spears. Skill of the pests known as the Kindred of Rot, now wielded as an incantation. Secrete numerous sticky threads, then twist them into 2 spears launched forwards. charged to enhance potency. The pests are abandoned servants, and it is for this reason that they found a mother in the Saint of the Bud. So, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot to talk about with Ramina's description, too, in her remembrance. So, yeah, I guess I don't really have too much to say about this right now, after all. Scarlet Bud. A large rotten bud that will never come into bloom. Grows in lands blighted by the scarlet rot. There was a time when these buds were not touched by the scarlet rot's blight, when they were the symbol of the small church deep in the ancient ruins of Rao. So, as I mentioned before, this temple has more horn-scent imagery and doesn't look as though it was naturally part of the Rao Empire, or whatever you want to call it, the Rao ruins. And so, I don't think Ramana was of, like, the Rao folk, unless the Rao folk themselves were also, horn scent. Hey Taunga, how's it going? I don't think Rani had a Great Rune because the shards of the Great Rune were obtained after the Shattering, and so I don't think she grabbed one. Crimson Sapping's actual garbage. It sucks. Stamina 1 is at the road leading from Bonnie Village up to Manus Meadow. Didn't I kill that dude? I thought I killed that dude. Gideon says Ronnie discarded her Great Rune. Well, Gideon's a Goomba. You ever think of that? No, that's legitimately why I think Gideon should be discounted for quite a lot of what he says. Maybe not like entirely discounted, but I think that shows the limits to his so-called all-knowing persona that he's adopted for himself. Yeah, we killed this one. So I'm assuming that... Did I kill the auntie ones? No, I killed the one. I didn't kill the other one. That one doesn't give the stamina one. What other Wicker Man? Oh, it's this one. The Cerulean Coast, isn't it? I say this one like this is the spot where anything's at. I'm talking about this one over here. Man, I don't want to have to fight these. Dylan asks, did the Rao people also build belly rots? I don't think that they built belly rots, but I do wonder if they've built a near limb, which seems like an extension of belly rots, don't get me wrong. And they have a lot of the same iconography. So me saying that I think is kind of a bit silly, but they don't seem to be entirely the same. Need more fireflies. I think I should have gotten the mushroom bell picker thing. Anyway, I guess we'll just do this manually. It sucks. Ronnie has a divine tower, and that's for Great Runes, right? But she doesn't have a 2 fingers up there. We don't activate any Great Rune from her. We only get half of the Curse Mark of Death. Elak River, so is this it? I'm assuming this is Elak River. I guess part of the other thing about these dudes is they just have a lot of really annoying attacks. Like, they're just not really fun to fight, they're just tedious. And the bad thing is I've been using the Turtle Talisman for so long that it feels normal to me and slow. For that, I was too greedy. should crush him, I think. Okay. Wild Strikes makes them a joke? I'll need to remember that, I guess. I got really lucky with that. More stam. The bud seen between the Twin Bird Relief and Farm Azula. Could it be related to the Church of the Bud? I'm skeptical of that, to be honest. But, I mean, it might be, but I just don't see it. Uh-oh. Going for it. Hey. I've gotten so used to fighting these things now. Holy crap. There we go. Viridian Hidden Tier plus the Furnace Visage. I will commit that one to memory. Alrighty, thank you guys for letting me know it's the Elak one. Where am I going? Ramana. Romina. Dylan sees what I'm saying? That makes sense. It looks like a lot of belly rot was built on top of something else. Okay, cool. At least I'm not alone for that. I feel like we get so many conflicting things. I wondered whether or not the Hornsent are the descendants of the Rao folk, or if they are a separate people who took up residence of the Rao people who may have died out or got melded together or something like that. How cool would it have been if Marika and the Hornsent worked together to sacrifice the Rao to like forge the Elden Ring? I made it look easy. I struggled against other ones. I've gotten more used to like doing the jump attacks with Torrent. I think that's the biggest trick, because before I would just, is this dude looking at me? I would just do the trigger attacks rather than the bumper attacks. My little guy's so cute with the giant sword. Thank you. You think the Hornsent fearing the fellow god of the fire giant implies they're not of the Rao folk? Rao seems to have had some interaction with the fire giants. I don't know if the Rao are the fire giants or if they're something else. It also sucks that we have like Nox giants, which have no relevance to anything. They're just kind of there, as well as like the Titans. So in my mind, I just always affiliated the Titans with the Blackstone civilization, which we now call like the Rao civilization. But other people might feel differently about that. I really don't have too strong opinions without having more text. Like, I'm very willing to change my mind. So, hey, we can summon for this? Oh, wait, we can summon Dane? I guess he's not pissed off at us yet. I don't want to summon for Amina. Yeah, Rao's architecture is possibly big enough for much larger people. Roxy says, Rao has the mother of the Crucible Talisman, so it checks out in my head. And her head. Night Scout thinks the Nokron and Noxtellan giants could be artificial gods created by the Nox themselves. We know they made silver tears and dragonkin soldiers. That's an interesting thought. It's kind of odd that they would leave skeletons, though, so we need a little more than 700, so 800. Alright, so the question is whether or not I want to goof around with the dueling shield or just be a little bit mean and go with the mediocre or greatsword. I guess I don't need to level up this if I have the Viridian tier. Having endurance is nice in general. Only 2 points feels not worth it. But I can equip heavier things. Actually, let's see what the damage scaling is like on me. Your weapon. So with a heavy infused thing. Okay, so it's still kind of worth pumping up strength then. Definitely worth that. Yeah, we'll just go strength. Hey Camellia, what are you saying about the dueling crest on the Taker's cameo? I don't have the Taker's cameo on this character to show it off. Do you think this sigil is similar? I guess I could put on the Rykard chest piece. Wait, no, I haven't done that quest. Damn it. This is much of a lore run this is. Does this look like the Rykard sigil? Maybe it does. So it doesn't help that it's burned on the Gelmir Knight's armor set, but this might be on that crest as well. Does the pole blade look weird in the DLC story trailer to Night Scout? It looks like it's shaped like a pendant flag pointing at her, and she's the only one, only holding the very tip. I wondered if it was a pendant flag when we were watching the trailer when it first released, but if you're asking if it looks different from now, I would say because she gave the bud up to the Scarlet Rot, essentially. Switch my talismans? Thanks, bro. Do I even need to? Oh. I don't have Flame Cleanse me because I'm a Goomba. Why don't I have Flame Cleanse me again? Where do I get it? What do I even want? I guess I could do the two-handed sword attack. And I should probably switch out my flasks. I'm honestly not too worried about her because I beat her in like 10 tries or less without any blessings. Just walk, like once I figured out you walk up to her and smack her in the face, she just kind of fell over. These are not my physics. One that clears talisman or poison, right? Actually, this might be the way to go. This might be good for me. Charged attacks? Let me think. Do I want to do charge attack or jumping attack? Probably jumping. Dash attacks? This is a good catch-all, though. And whatever. We'll be fine. Oh, it's on the right of the Taker's cameo. I think I know what you're talking about. So it might be Rykard sigil. Ramana, Saint of the Bud. Wow, she does no damage. I say with my 17 blessings. Trying to get a good angle of her. Okay. So yeah, her staff looks a bit different. Like it looked a bit more like a rose before it's fully bloomed in the story trailer. Whereas like now it's a bit more compact, I guess. I don't know how to describe the tip of the spear thing. The visual design of her is just top tier, amazing. Very unsettling stuff. All right, I'm gonna try to get like another good look at her real quick, and then we'll fight for realsies. Her placement being like off center like that is kind of weird. So she's like spiraled between the two halves. Which might be worth Dylan's consideration. So she's closer to the tail. So that part is more like spider leggy. So she's like half millipede, well, 1/3 millipede, 1/3 scorpion, 1/3 spider. I guess that doesn't account for her humanoid or the wing part. Oh wait, her. Okay, I'm gonna die again on purpose to see like. I wish I had the free cam so I could like pause this and show this stuff off, because the way that the Scarlet Rot thing encompassed the blade portion of her spear looked pretty cool. And then we get the flower or butterflies coming out of it. I almost called them flowers. That's cool. So that routed me pretty quickly. Oh, that's a good angle. It would be nice to be able to pause the game. Sekiro style a little bit. Alrighty. Alright, Moxie, you have a good night. You're in Ireland? Damn, that's awesome. I'm jealous. Are you gonna go visit Scotland, I think you were saying that one time, to check out some of those cathedrals and stuff? And I hope you enjoy your trip, and thanks for dropping in while you're on your trip. That's kind of crazy. Picture mode should have been in Elden Ring, for real. Right. I should have used my flask. See, guys, you just walk up to her and hit her. Oh, that one's not gonna hit. What am I doing? Ooh-wee. Oh, that's so pretty. I guess we'll go with this. It's a good catch-all. You wish we didn't have to kill Ramana? A lot of people wish we didn't have to kill Ram. Interesting. So for that attack, you dodge either right before that light comes off or during it. I was a little bit early that time. I was surprised I didn't get punished. Should be rolling back, I know this. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I was trying to jump. Well, I guess that kind of worked out. Oh, that's like the trailer music. I didn't realize this was her theme. Did she attack? I don't remember. Okay, so I was too slow waiting for that to pop out. Ooh. I feel bad for that. That's kind of dirty. Remembrance of the Saint of the Bud. Which I'm sure a lot of people like her remembrance name. Or might feel a little bit offended by it, I don't know. They might feel like they're the Saints of the Bud. But anyway. Yeah, I really like Ramana and her design. She just feels woefully undertuned for this late in the game. So yeah, as we look at the Temple of the Bud, we can see all of the Hornsent style designs of the people on the walls and whatnot. These designs do look kind of similar to what were on the doors in the Rao ruins, but they are ever so slightly different. Alright, so let's go ahead and check this one out. Remembrance of Ramana, Saint of the Blood, Saint of the Bud, hewn into the Shadow Tree. After the church was burned to the ground, Ramana discovered a twisted divine element which she weaved into the baleful scarlet rot. Perhaps then, the buds might find somewhere to gain purchase once more within the scorched remains. So, I wasn't alone in reading the English this way, that it makes it sound as though she was able to like take the rot and weave it into the bud, but it's kind of like let me double check the Japanese. I don't think I have my translation ready for this yet because I haven't like made my short video on it, but anyway, Saint of the Bud. I'm on the wrong tab. Okay. All right, hold on. I found it. All right. Let me read the English. Ramana discovered a twisted divine element. Okay, yeah, so the difference is that the part where it says which she weaved into the baleful scarlet rot is a bit incorrect. The Japanese is closer to that she discovered a divine element and she clinged to the scarlet rot is essentially what it's saying. And then to follow that up in the pretty much all in order for the bud to bloom once again in the burned ruins is what it's saying. So that's a bit of a difference. She is not weaving anything into the scarlet rot as much as she is clinging to the scarlet rot in the hope that it will restore her bud to its former glory. So really tragic figure. I really like her lore somewhat. I don't know. Like, it's okay. It's pretty self-contained. It doesn't really contradict anything in the base game, which I'm perfectly fine with. I'm just a little bit confused about the pink Scarlet Rot kindred, which we do have that pest thread thing, which is part of why I didn't say anything about it earlier, because I felt like it wasn't super relevant until I could talk to Ramana. And I guess before ending the stream, we'll go back to the Altar of Light and check out some of the Scarlet Bud 3D model type things. The pests are abandoned servants, and it is for this reason that they found a mother in the Saint of the Bud. So these kindred dudes are post-Crusade is the main takeaway. And so it's not like... Oh, then let me... Oh, yeah. I should talk about them in relation to Millennia. They are abandoned servants, so it is possible that they could have been followers of Millennia originally, but it's kind of weird because Mikola and Millennia may have been born after these two lands were separated. So do the Kindred of Rot predate Millennia? Maybe. I wouldn't be too surprised, honestly, if they're like servants of the Outer God of Rots. Anyway. Thanks you all for the GGs. Appreciate that. Why is it necessary to kill Ramana? You heard she's a required boss. Because she's in the way to get to the Sealing Tree. She doesn't want us to go through her church. She might not want us to use fire again because maybe she's just that anti-fire after her church was burned down. But we don't really know why. What kind of bug are her wings modeled after? That's a very good question. I don't know. Maybe like a Vespa? But, I mean, obviously Vespas aren't purple. At least not the common variety. Operator says, is there a good theory for why she guards it, or is it just incidental? I feel like it's incidental. A lot of the bosses tend to be that way. Oh, Anthony actually has an answer. Humanoptera? Let me check that out. Hopefully that's not like a pun. Okay, it is. Sawflies, wasps, bees, and ants. Okay. Appreciate that. Camellia says, if the duelist shield is Rykard's, it's weird that he tried to prove himself to the Erdtree via ritual combat. Well, he is a Karian, and it could have just been somebody amongst his forces who did it. He was also a ruthless justiciar, and if they needed like champions for dueling to met out justice, I don't think that's entirely incompatible with what we're told about him, at least before all the blaspheming happened. Trip to another bug wife. Okay. You want some Ramana bug armor so bad? So even though I don't really like bugs that much in real life, I don't know, I guess I must have a soft spot for some types of bugs, like somewhat, because I tend to be a really big fan of like a lot of bug-like creatures, I guess, in fiction. So like, I really liked spikes in Magic the Gathering, if anybody has any idea what the hell those are from like the Weatherlight set. Also slivers are super cool, and like Destiny 2, I think the Hive are by far the coolest faction. I would love to play a Hive Guardian, but oh man, I'm getting distracted by everything. So there's just a lot of really cool aesthetics with certain types of bugs in games and fiction, I suppose. Not all of them. Not in real life. They're terrifying. Maybe that's part of it. Kyle says, this creation of a new religion reminds you of the Blood Fiends. Yeah, I do think there are some pretty interesting parallels with them as well. Their divinity was destroyed, and from its destruction they found new divinity. Yes. Stout says, "Do you think the bud says it was never going to flower, but still imbued with rot? Makes you think of Mikola's lily." Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that I had noticed as well. Did you want me to look at these ones or the actual model of the collectibles? Probably the collectibles. I hate all the dithering. Let me not forget about that. It's kind of cool. It reminds me of the Millennia Scarlet Bloom, which shouldn't be too much of a surprise. All right. So right, that did strike me as a bit weird that even the Scarlet Rot doesn't bloom, or the Scarlet Buds, because it seems more like a Mikola thing than Millennia, but I guess it will never come into bloom. I guess that doesn't necessarily mean that it's got like the equivalent of eternal youth. What the hell is that? Oh, that's the scarab thing, I think. You know, that's just a note. It could just mean that the reason it would never come into bloom is because it will die before it fully reaches maturity. Should be a little bit tragic, but I could see that being a thing. I shouldn't go this way for this. Oh well, let's make some poor decisions. My dog distracted me. They're cheating. I got invaded. Aha, their weakness. Big damage. Alright. Hey, Night Scout. Yeah, we beat Ralmina. And I spent a decent amount of time just like looking at her model as well as I could in the middle of the boss fight. She's not exactly the most challenging boss. They don't really look like Scarlet Ionia to you. You know, the Scarlet Rot Outer God might have tweaked them a bit, but they look very different nonetheless. I think they look slightly like it. I don't think like it's a one-for-one match, but like the Scarlet Ionia before it blooms, at least. That's the type of attack that I want to happen. I'm scared. That damn hit stun made my hit not queue up. That's annoying. Just need to get them close. Dog invasion strikes again. Truly the reddest of invaders. And so these little kindred folk are kind of seemingly praying to the Rao statue, which makes them seem like they were Rao folk, or that this statue could be depicting that outer god of Rot, which I posited way earlier in the stream when we first got up here. Not that I like believe it's truly an outer god of Rot that's being depicted, but the fact that these things seemingly pray to it does bring that up as an interesting possibility. Revenge. I don't give a lot of runes for how tough they are. Yeah, Rot. Kindred of Rot are no joke. And the pink ones are worse than the base game ones. Wait, and so all of this is just like bubblegum currency, not really important. So we get another picture of, or not picture, sculpture of that lady with more of the rot stuff around her. We actually see like the fungal type rot that you'd get in the base game. Actually, I wonder how the Lake of Rot would map onto the Shadowlands if they were all together. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. I was on this thing. I wasn't paying attention to where I was facing. So, hey guys, in case you were playing offline and don't see all those messages, there's a secret path here. It's kind of lame that you've got all the notes there. Like, I thought it was lame that I couldn't leave a note on a moving platform before it moved, but I feel like it's even more lame to place those notes on invisible platforms. Raise the Sword of Darkness to the light. So now we can get the Sword of Light. And so you can freely switch between the Sword of Light and Darkness if you visit their respective altars. So it makes the most sense to loot it from the catacombs first, the sword, rather than over here. Otherwise you're going to need to go back to the catacombs every time, which is not a good time. So rip to the runs where they did things differently, I guess. Matt says, you could argue dying before reaching maturity and eternal youth could be seen as conceptually adjacent, a little bit. So the way that I've often referred to Melena's rot is that it's kind of like cancer. So I would say Miquella's curse is that of boundless youth, whereas Millennia's curse is the curse of boundless growth. So I think they're like this different takes on essentially the same concept. Dylan says on his game playing offline, there is just a bunch of tumbleweeds on the platform. That makes sense. I think I did see one tumbleweed when I ran on this my first time through, but I admit I totally missed that platform to the Sword of Lights, which I guess I didn't read, but okay. I'm going to teleport back to the Ramana location and then probably end things there and then pick it up with the Lion Dancer tomorrow. Is there any serpent imagery in Rao? I don't think so. If so, I don't remember any off the top of my head. If these kindred are abandoned, they might be worship anything as a stand-in for Millennia. Maybe. So part of the reason why I don't like it said that they're abandoned is because we're told that the other kindred felt abandoned by Millennia. And I guess that would imply that these dudes could have been abandoned by her as well. Which, if the realms are separated, like, why would they feel that way? Like, would they not just feel abandoned by the Scarlet God itself, or does that kind of track that the ones in the base game associate Millennia with the outer goddess Scarlet Rut itself? I don't know. Messages spoiled it for you too. Camellia thinks the fire sprites seem serpent-like are in Rawa. Well, at least those are used by Hornsent folk. I don't remember if those things are actually... Hey, we finally got our hefty rat pat. Okay. Sword of Light. Pulled from its stone scabbard at an altar. From the quick of the root, unswerving rays of light intersect and reflect to give the silver blade form. Unique skill, Light. Unleashes the light carved in the armament's blade. Send the sword aloft to let loose a blinding light whose many rays sweep through the surrounding area. Also temporarily boosts one's own holy attacks. So we should be able to use this based off of our attributes. So let's go ahead and show this off. that is one hell of attack. So I don't know why this blade is imbued or like made out of silver specifically. It looks like almost kintsugi, which is where like something that's broken is infused with gold to be repaired and put back together. So silver is often associated with knights and things relating to FP. Hold on, did this buff me? Boost one's own holy attacks. Okay, so I thought. It's interesting that it's a white light. And so the blades of light and darkness were based off of like cut content, although I guess it was a little bit more obvious with the blade of darkness. I don't think this icon might have been in the base game's cut files, but anyway. Because we can find this one in the ruins of Rao, and because the altars that we get them from kind of look like finger ruins, it really leaves a lot of questions in my mind about the relation of all of that. Actually, I guess it makes more sense to go to the other one over here, just so I don't have to run past other rot pests. Before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and craft my rat pats so I can put them on the bar for me mimic. Rot is one of the divine elements of the outer gods and eats away at life like a vicious plague. So this is part of why I compare rot to a kind of cancer, because rot itself is a form of life and it causes other things to decay by consuming them like a vicious plague. Which is analogous to the way that curses eat through things in FromSoft games. Which, now that I say it that way, I'm kind of surprised. I didn't think to talk about that more in my video. I don't have the presence of mind right now to think through my thoughts and share them with you guys right now. It's a little bit too late in the night for me. But just to give a quick, too long, didn't watch, didn't read, etc., is that there's a term in Japanese, mushibamu, which is essentially like worm-eaten, that is used extremely often in conjunction with the way that curses eat through things. And that shows up in things like Power Within in Dark Souls 1, like the Chaos Blade eats away at life, the same type of terminology used there. That's also used in Elden Ring with the way that Deathlight is said to eat away at people. Coincidentally, the character from Mushibamu, the Chinese reading of it is Shoku, which is also used to describe the eclipse. So I think it was very intentionally done by the developers to associate Godwin with both the Prince of the Eclipse, essentially, and the Eclipse Hotel, and Deathbite with the way that it eats through things. And it does suck we don't get more of that real Godwin lore in the DLC and like anything with the Eclipse in the DLC. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be eternally salty about that. But now I'm wondering whether or not like the way that curses eat away at things might be relevant to like the Jar Miko and curses in general. But I'm kind of like drawing a blank other than just like curses bad. I don't know if like the eating away at things is super relevant for anything else. Stout Boat says, you keep hearing Mikla's power is of nascence. In World of Warcraft, the planet Azeroth, a nascent world soul, is referred to as the last sleeping titan. Mikla's other half is Trina, a being of sleep. So, yeah, like, nascence isn't it like recently hatched or something like that? So it means like something young. So I don't know how much of this is a coincidence or not. I'm a little too tired. It's weird that nascence equates to sleep in these two media. Okay. Well, I guess like nascence isn't that off-brand, because if something is like newly born, newly hatched, etc., they're coming from a state of being where they're either like asleep or like not fully conscious. So that kind of makes sense to me. Night Scott says Mushibamu, doesn't Mushi generally mean bug? Yes. So I can show you the characters for it, and when you look at the character for Mushibamu, it does have the radical for bug within it. Mushibamu. So the character for bug, I can't show it to you. Like, there's no radical breakdown. Oh wait, maybe no, I can't show you guys G-Show on my screen. Anyway, if you type this in and go to gshow.org, you can type this character into it, and it will show you the radical breakdown, I think. And the character, hold on. So the leftmost character on the right half of it is the character for bug, and then the groups of characters on the left are like the characters for food, essentially, or yeah, eating. So it's like bug eat, essentially. And that is also used for Eclipse, because like the Eclipse gets hollowed out by something, so it's like being eaten through, essentially. Night Scott said, if Mushibamu is usually used for curses, does that mean the Castle Soul ritual was trying to put a curse on the sun? So it doesn't quite mean curse in this context. I'm saying that FromSoft uses the term Mushibamu in conjunction with curses to describe the way that they eat away at things. So with that being said, thematically, you might be able to make that argument that it's a curse on the sun because they're trying to eclipse it. They are trying to drain the sun, essentially. But beyond that, I don't know how much that Mushibamu concept is relevant to things like putrescence or like the horn set. And Bro says the eclipse probably never happened because Radahn was holding back the stars. It seems that way, but it does annoy me that Jaren says the stars have aligned. Like, they weren't aligned to begin with, so Radahn was maybe selectively holding back the stars. And now with the context of the DLC, it might be possible to think that the stars that Radahn might have been holding back were additional finger beasts like Metter or the Elden Beast or a Falling Star Beasts. Isn't Jaren's Japanese line more like the stars are pushing? I don't remember what he says. Stars have aligned. It's going to take a minute for the search to index. No, Michita. So like, Michiru means to like become full or like mature, to ripen. And I'm thinking in this context, like the celestial bodies are like maturing does mean like they are aligning. They are like, they're reaching the proper point, essentially. So I think that's actually a really good localization. My half dyslexic ass almost read it as like Ochta, like the stars fell, but no, that's not what it is. Are they said to be held in place? Yes, by EG and stuff like that. His Castellan dialogue and festival dialogue mention the stars and they're surging and aligning. Yes. What the hell landed in the finger runes? People for some reason assume it's two fingers, but they're always born of Metter. But they are born of Metter. There are 3 runes and only 1 Metter. So they could have been like children of Metter that could have been like conquered or something. It's really strange that they're all so filled with gold. the like statues or corpses or whatever the hell those things are in the ruins themselves. And like, who honored them? Were they the Rao folk? Did the fingers fight with the Rao folk? Is that what like these kind of meteor or greatswords were all about? Because they certainly made them big and impressive for a reason. And it sucks, like, other than blowing the bells, which is a weird sentence, the only thing that you get from it are just the seed talismans. A lot of big empty space for not a whole lot of lore. But the greatest Unborn history, I like it. You wonder if Meta arrived with 2 Erdtree seeds and one became the Shadow Tree. I like that idea. Because one could be for like vitality and the other could be for like spirit, I guess. FP. Alright, guys. That'll be it for tonight's stream. Thank you all for joining as always. We'll be going live at the same time of 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully we'll catch you on the next one. So until then, take care. Stay safe. Last Protagonist out.